The central Mwangi Expanse, Nantambu, Usaro, Kibwe, and the Alijae Elves. This video has been a long time coming. I'm finally getting to my last video that covers the Mwangi Expanse region. You can think of this video as being either the third part of a three-part video series, including my previous videos on the southern Mwangi and western Mwangi Expanse, or perhaps more accurately as the fifth part of a five-part video series, which also includes my regional deep dive on the nation of Vidrian and my regional deep dive on the Abandago Gulf, both of which include areas discussed in the Lost Omens Mwangi Expanse guidebook. Regardless, we're finally getting to the deepest parts of the Mwangi Jungle. In this video, I will be covering some of the regional history, as I always do, followed by a look at a few geographical regions. This will include a look at the central Mwangi Jungle, at the Barrier Wall Mountains, and at the various passes that allow access through those mountains. After covering the major geographies of the region, I'll take a deeper dive into the important city-states. This will include the much-referenced Charaka-dominated city of Usaro, as well as the predominantly human city-states of Kibwe and Nantambu. Finally, I will conclude this video with a discussion of the White City of Nagisa and the Alijae Elves. Even though they are also frequently encountered in the central Mwangi Jungle, I won't be discussing the Taralu Dwarves, who are covered in my southern Mwangi video, nor the Matangi Orcs or the Kalajae Elves, which I decided to include in my Sodden Lands video because of their close association with the Yamasan diaspora. Without further ado, let's get into it. The history of the central Mwangi Expanse. Despite being a dense predatory jungle rife with natural dangers, the Mwangi Jungle has one of the most ancient histories in the Inner Sea region, if not the whole world. Even before the Age of Legend, civilization could be found here. During the Age of Serpents, it was here in the Mwangi Jungle that the Serpent Folk made the heart of their surface empire. The staging ground for their conquest of the Gurundi surface was a city called Ilmuria, though it was later conquered and paved over by the Aslanti and renamed Savinth-Yi, or the Tomb of Savith, to mark the spot where Savith slew the avatar of the great god of the serpent folk, Idursius. Before its conquest at the hands of the Aslanti, Ilmuria was a towering fortress city, a great forward bastion from which to conquer the rest of the world. The serpent folk also had another name for it. They called it the Shimmering Spiral of the South. Having already conquered vast domains in the Darklands spanning all three levels and great portions of the incalculably massive Orvian vaults, by the standards of the ancient and potent serpent folk, the city of Ilmuria was said to have been a relatively humble settlement, built in short order and with limited resources as a fortified enclave from which to strike out and subjugate a mere single surface continent. Yet for its humbleness, the city remained far beyond the scope of all human engineering, and it resonated with the undeniable grandeur of the serpent folk's ancient power. Constructed as a sister city to the more impressive and far older enclave of Zverinagati below the Kodar Mountains of Avestan in the north, Ilmuria was cut from the bedrock of Sekamina in the waning days of serpent folk dominance. As the war with the Aslanti and their allies took heavier and heavier tolls upon the one-time rulers of the world, Ilmuria became the last great jewel of their empire, as the Age of Serpents finally drew to a close. The final sundering of Idursius by the Aslanti hero Savith marked the end of the empire. With the subterranean city crippled in the wake of the Aslanti attack, repeated sorties into Ilmuria from the Aslanti city of Savinth-Yi that they had constructed above it forced the slow abandonment of the city by the serpent folk, who vanished into smaller and better hidden enclaves deeper beneath the world. The later fall of the Starstone damaged the city badly and cut off all means of escape for the Aslanti garrison there, leaving the empty, echoing city almost entirely in the hands of the Morlocks, the degenerate descendants of the city's Aslanti conquerors. They remained its rulers for many millennia, until the nightmarish Orvian vampires, the Urdafans, came out of the depths of the darkness and took much of the old ruins from them. Meanwhile, on the surface, the Aslanti city of Savinth-Yi became, for a time, the Aslanti's most powerful eastern bastion, protected by 7 magical ziggurats called the Seven Spears. When the Earthfall Cataclysm occurred, the magical wards of the Seven Spears failed. The Aslanti were wiped out, and over time the great city was claimed by both the jungle and the Charaka minions of the demon lord Angazan. Of course, Aslant was not the only civilization to have established itself in the Age of Legend that preceded the Cataclysm. The Alijae Elves also came to the region at this time, and established a wide-reaching civilization in the wake of the collapse of the Serpent Folk Empire. Unlike the Aslanti, the Elves were forewarned of the impending apocalypse, and many fled the world of Galarian by way of the Ayudara, the Elvish waygates. Many of the Alijae, however, resolved to stay. They battled the dragon god Dahak, who was drawn to the darkness and desperation of a world shattered by such a meteorite. Eventually the Elves managed to bind him to the gate network and avert his conquest of the world. However, in doing so, the Mualajae remained trapped in Galarian all through the ages of darkness and anguish, and it would be many, many millennia before they would ever be reunited with any of their lost Iodine kindred. Although the Age of Darkness that follows is characterized by an almost total absence of civilization, uniquely in the Mwangi Jungle, a few examples of civilization survive the cataclysm. The first and most obvious example of this was among the surviving Elves, who formed 3 distinct cultures. The Ekujay chose to stay behind, and assumed the responsibility of protecting the Hunter Gate and guarding against the possible return of Dahak. But not all the Mualajae remained. The Elves who would become the Kalajae directed their efforts towards challenging the nation of Usaro, where the Charaka and the cults of the demon lord Angazan were strongest. Meanwhile, other clans traveled northeast, eventually rediscovering the White City of Nagisa. Despite the city's clearly elven architecture, its origins had been lost to time, and its heart had attracted demonic influences. The clans disagreed on how to deal with this new evil. Those that chose to remain near Nagisa, studying its ruins and attempting to drive out the demons, became the Alijae. It's this third group that we'll be discussing in more detail today. But it was not just the Elves that had found a path to civilization. A human city-state called Erd emerged somewhere in the land, though its exact whereabouts remain unknown to this day. Oral traditions, corroborated by rare artifacts discovered in the ruins of later civilizations, depict Erd as a grim and stratified society, where a ruling class of sorcerers held dominion over an enslaved populace, controlling not just their lives but also their very souls. According to legend, it was the renowned old mage Jatembe and his 10 magic warriors that obliterated the city, invoking the power of the jungle itself to dismantle its stone structures. Some scholarly accounts suggest a deeper connection between Jatembe and Erd, proposing that the old mage may have originated from the city, perhaps as a noble disenchanted with his peers. The city's exact locations is unknown, described vaguely as in the jungle, and all reports affirm Jatembe's thoroughness in eradicating any trace of the place. The local Mwangi peoples, residing deep within the jungle, understandably regard Erd as a cursed locale best left forgotten, actively misleading any researchers who venture in its pursuit. Ongoing expeditions include one led by Absalom Pathfinder, Professor Inabar de Gomfrey, who has dedicated over a decade to the search. Another is helmed by Ustalavic archaeologist Gerhard Pendergrast, and a third is undertaken by the Chelish Paracountess Domiana Lix. In any case, speaking of Old Mage Jatembe and his eventual destruction of Erd, the Old Mage appears in historical records in the central Mwangi region as early as the late years of the Age of Anguish. Jatembe represents the next major milestone in the region's progress towards re-establishing civilization. Providing a comprehensive account of the legend surrounding Old Mage Jatembe and his 10 magic warriors exceeds the limits of this history section, but suffice it to say for now that his legends are multitude. But Jatembe's most significant accomplishment lay in reintroducing magic and spellcasting to the humans of the region. His foundational teachings emphasize the importance of sharing knowledge. If knowledge did not benefit anyone, what value did it hold? Each of his 10 magic warriors, with their unique focuses and interests, took to wearing an animal mask, the likeness of which in turn became their names. These warriors followed Jatembe's example by taking on apprentices to train and send out into the world for the greater good. Among the wisest of Jatembe's disciples was a warrior mage known as the Elephant Chronicler, who, as her name suggests, took a mask with the likeness of a great and mighty elephant. Her foremost disciple was known as Jade Feather, an astute pupil with a deep love for books and stories, a love which he shared with his mentor. Over time, Jade Feather observed that much of the knowledge generated by the warriors and their apprentices was not being preserved. Most moved from one challenge to another without documenting solutions or communicating them to others. Jade Feather brought this matter to Master Elephant, proposing that the apprentices choose a regular meeting place to exchange knowledge. Elephant agreed, and she encouraged her followers to gather with those of her friend the Verdant Spider in Master Spider's favored village of Nantambu. These meetings evolved into an annual event, drawing followers of the other magic warriors who were unwilling to have their exploits excluded from Jade Feather and Master Elephant's chronicles. Across the Expanse, those seeking knowledge for its own sake or to benefit their communities flocked to Nantambu. The Elephant Chronicler and the Verdant Spider, as organizers of the event, imposed no strict codes of conduct, demanded no specific syllabus or apprenticeship requirements. They simply asked that prospective students help the villagers with their work and contribute to the communal well-being. It was a third member of Jatembe's warriors, the Golden Snake, that ultimately bestowed upon the event one of his own nicknames, Magambia, meaning Seekers of Wisdom. Nantambu became renowned as a place of shared learning and tolerance for all willing to live, learn, and work together. This sterling reputation, along with the rumors of an Anadi among the magic warriors, attracted the attention of the Anadi people, a reclusive, shape-shifting spider folk from the southern reaches of Garand with a natural aptitude for transmutation magic. In centuries past, Anadis had approached cities now lost to history, seeking only to learn and trade. However, they were driven away by an instinctive arachnophobia among other sapient species. Undeterred, Anadis spent centuries changing their forms to evoke less fear. With the Magambia accepting both Iruxi and Knoll petitioners, their hopes rose. As early as the first decade of the Age of Destiny, no fewer than 3 Anadi spellcasters had sought admission to the Magambia. According to legend, on the eve of their formal acceptance as teachers, they revealed their true forms to Jade Feather in private. Overcoming initial alarm, Jade Feather declared that they would be welcomed regardless of their shape. Since that day, Anadi scholars have been a vital part of the Magambia institution. In -2556, in the early middle years of the Age of Destiny, another one of the magic warriors helped establish a prominent Mwangi culture. This was the Shori Empire, who built their settlements on the high trees of the jungles north of Lake Okota. Kept safe against the predations of the Angazan cults of Usaro, which had thrived during the ages of darkness and anguish by the combined might of the Matangi Orcs and the Alijae Elves, discussed in more detail in my Soddenlands video, the Shori tribe was initially a fairly modest human culture. The Black Heron came to them and taught them the basics of aeromancy magic, to cloak their treetop villages in mist, and to help them protect themselves against invading Charaka with lightning and thunder. The Shori tribe became quite skilled with the magic, and by 200 years later, in -2323, the Shori established the first of their great flying cities, the city of Ko. Ko would become the jewel of the Shori Empire, and other cities would be constructed in its likeness, but none with its grandeur, scale, or power. The founding of Ko marked the start of the great hegemony of the Shori Empire of the Mwangi Expanse. This empire stretched from the western reaches of the Shackles Islands to the border with the northern empire of Osirian. It clashed numerous times with its great northern rival, as the pharaohs of old believed in their own destined supremacy, and found the Shori mastery of magic and science an affront to their dominance in the region. It seemed as though the Shori Empire would outlast the Empire of Osirian, especially after the death of the first Sky Pharaoh, Hakotep I, who had attempted to build a vast flying pyramid to challenge the Shori with. After Hakotep's death, Osirian entered a period of deep decline between -1611 and -1498, about 100 years. The empire splintered apart, separating into many fractious city-states. This marked the period between the first and second ages of the empires of Osirian. In -929, the nation of Geb separated from Osirian. In -892, so did the nation of Nex, and finally in -841, so did the nation of Thuvia. By the time of the Second Age, the Empire of Osirian was no longer interested in challenging the Shori Empire for supremacy in Garand, as they were focused on reuniting their old empire, and on other matters of internal strife. The Shori Empire, however, were instead challenged by another unexpected enemy. From out of the pit of Gormuz and Kazmaran, a titanic beast known as the Tarask made its way across the world. It entered into the Mwangi Expanse at the Korarn Pass, large enough to not only tower over the jungle, but to attack the floating cities directly. The Shori capital of Ko was destroyed by the beast. The city-state of Ko crashed near the pass, where its ruins remain to this day. This occurred in -632, and it triggered a sharp decline in the Shori Empire. By just over 100 years later, in -507, the last of the great Shori cities crashed into the Shattered Range Mountains in the southern Mwangi territory. The Shori Age had ended. In the wake of the Shori collapse, Zenge polities emerged as regional power centers. The majority of these village settlements emerged in the central Mwangi Jungle under male leadership. However, each of these settlements maintained a connection with a sister tribe in the savannah, governed by a nomadic matriarch. Forest cities engaged in trade with their sister tribes, exchanging agricultural produce and finished goods for meat, hides, and ivory. Communities also facilitated the exchange of adolescents and young individuals for marriage alliances and to keep the respective cultures from stagnating. 2 significant settlements emerged in this period in the central Mwangi region. The first of these was a city called Zatramba. Zatramba began to make a name for itself as a spiritual center, and it was ruled over by a collective of Pharasman priest kings. These priests, who held the belief that the spirits of ancestors served as intermediaries between the living and the realm of the dead, gained widespread recognition for their wisdom and power. Mourners from far-off villages undertook pilgrimages to Zatramba, bringing bones or tokens of their ancestors to consult with the esteemed priests for guidance and assistance. The second was the city of Kibwe. Discounting the isolationist Alijae Elves, Kibwe served as the largest and closest settlement to the Ndele Gap, which is the only safe overland pass through the Shattered Range. Through its close proximity to the wealth and power of ancient Osirian and the powerful magocracy of Nex, Kibwe prospered as a thriving mercantile hub, the doorway to the Mwangi Expanse. Its strategic location near various mines, notably those extracting diamond, gold, and salt, further elevated the town's significance in the region. Another curiosity was that the city itself predated human settlement, though the Zenge tribes that established their city there did not know who built it. Kibwe's boom period began in earnest in the year 731, when Nexian archmages established the Barapara Dahabi, or the Road of Gold, which tracked a safe path through the desert from their capital city of Quantium, through their thriving mercantile hub of Enopian, and up through the Ndele Gap. By 1054, the growing city-state of Kibwe began to experience numerous raids from southern Knoll tribes. As discussed in more detail in the southern Mwangi video, in the fields of Jahmal, which had long been Knoll-held territory, a powerful Knoll matriarch named Hungry Bones united the Knoll tribes under her leadership, and began raiding the human cities of the Mwangi Expanse, including both Kibwe and Mazali further south. Hungry Bones died in battle in 1098, but she was succeeded by her daughter, Shattered Bones. A few years after the death of her mother, Shattered Bones took what remained of her mother's loyalist forces, which now consisted primarily just of the Spinebreakers tribe, and settled northwards, in the plains between the Screaming and Mwangi jungles. With their numbers reduced, Shattered Bones shifted tactics. Instead of simply raiding settlements, she instead extorted tribute, in exchange for protection along the savannah trade routes. After a long and profitable career, Shattered Bones passed leadership of the Spinebreakers to her daughter Ashen Bones, and retired to Kibwe, where she parlayed her reputation as a shrewd negotiator and experienced warrior to broker deals with caravans seeking Knoll mercenaries as guards. The legacy of this in the Mwangi Expanse is twofold. The first is the proliferation of Knoll mercenaries in the region, which can be found fulfilling contracts as far afield as Mazali and Sengor. The second was the slow transformation of the city-state of Kibwe from a predominantly Zenge city to a more cosmopolitan polity that welcomed any people so long as they were willing to work hard and grow the prosperity of the great city. In 1532, Kibwe's western neighbor ceased to be the Empire of Osirian. A series of slave revolts finally brought about an end to pharaonic rule. But this victory for the common people was short-lived. The Padishah Empire of Kelesh, the great hegemony of southern Kazmaran, took advantage of this and staged an intervention, as they called it, to secure peace in the lands. Osirian was subsumed into the greater empire of Kelesh, which was all, of course, a part of the growing conflict between the Keleshite Empire and its powerful northern rival, the Empire of Taldor, which had by this time already conquered so much of the northern continent of Avestan. Kibwe's trade partner over the gap thus became the much larger and more powerful Eastern Empire, and this also continued to grow the city, with the increased wealth and trade that connected it by the Golden Road to the far reaches of eastern Kazmaran. Meanwhile, just southeast of Kibwe, in the early 2000s, Zatramba continued to grow in power and influence, but it also grew increasingly spiritual. The city grew so spiritually oriented that many materially minded merchants and craftspeople moved to the savannah camps of their sister tribe, the Rastel. In a break with tradition, the nomadic Rastel tribe decided to expand their camps into permanent markets. They established at least two significant cities, the capital city of Rastel and the southern trade center of Liklak on the outskirts of the Screaming Jungle. In the city of Rastel, the tribe matriarch took residence in a tower of bone, where she coordinated teams of hunters who alternated between keeping the city supplied with meat and escorting caravans to other Zenge cities. Not surprisingly, as they shared common practices, these skilled Rasteli caravan guards and hunters became close working partners with the mercenary Knoll companies of the central grasslands in Kibwe. Over time, Zatramba and the Rastel cities formed a powerful union. Not a traditional nation or empire in the ways of the northern kingdoms, but a powerful emergent polity all the same. They essentially laid claim to all the lands from the southern Mwangi Jungle to the northern Screaming Jungle. Meanwhile, the Taldan Empire, which had been growing in power since the first year, as reckoned by the Absalom calendar, had grown envious of the wealth that was flowing into the Empire of Kelesh from northern Garand. In the year 2080, they plotted their sixth great army of exploration. This army was composed of thousands of militiamen conscripted from the province of Andoran, and it was deployed to the southernmost reaches of the Kelishite Empire, the lands that would one day become Katapesh. They established their beachhead with the covert aid of Nexian archmages, who had long feared the great power of their new imperialistic northern neighbor. The Sixth Army was able to conquer the Kelishite cities in the region by deploying the same great weapon that had allowed them to conquer the lands of Brevoy in the north, a powerful and magical battering ram known as the World Breaker. Praise for the Taldan general of the Sixth Army, Strategos Erestos Marbaran, flooded in from the mainland. However, against Nexian advice, Erestos did not take his time to secure Katapesh. Instead, he desired access to the inland Mwangi territories across the Ndele Gap, believing if he could control the gap, he would have a stranglehold over all trade that came through the greater continent of Garand. The following year, from their beachhead in Katapesh, they crossed into the eastern reaches of the central Mwangi territory. The Taldans laid claim to the city of Nagisa, from which the Alijae Elves temporarily retreated before the advancing Taldan armies. For a while it seemed as though the Taldans would establish Nagisa as a regional power center and consolidate control over both southern portions of Katapesh and the eastern reaches of the Mwangi Jungle. But suddenly they came under siege. It was not the forces of Kibwe, nor of the Rastel-Zatramba Union that confronted the Taldan invaders on the outskirts of the jungle. Rather, it was the Charaka and the Guerrilla King who came screaming out of the jungle and put a halt to their ambitions, massacring an entire army in an ambush at Nagisa and further humiliating the Taldan leadership by seizing the magical siege engine Worldbreaker. Strategos Marbaran was slain and his forces dispersed. In the wake of the Guerrilla King's resounding defeat of the Taldan forces, the Kaleshi forces deployed in Osirian quickly took advantage and reclaimed their Katapeshi territories. The Taldans who remained, cut off from the rest of their empire, were all either killed or fled in exile to nearby Nex. Today, the Sixth Army is considered a great stain among Taldor's myriad ancient conquests. An ignoble defeat, Strategos Marbaran's overreach and eventual death, is often cited among later Taldans as a clear example of what happens when hubris comes before wisdom. Some even mark this defeat as the beginning of Taldan decline that would ultimately culminate in the separation of Cheliax and the subsequent losses due to the even-tongued conquest. From 2498 to 2560, the Oath Wars led to the establishment of modern Rahadum. Rahadumi exiles moved south and established a new country for themselves, which would later separate into two distinct kingdoms, Lirgan and Yamasa. More details on Lirgan and Yamasa can be found in my Abendego Gulf deep dive video. Meanwhile, back east, possibly a lingering legacy of Taldan intervention in eastern Garand was that Kaleshi dominance in the southern territory had been challenged. By 3250, a separatist Garundi faction fought a bloody war of independence against the greater empire of Kalesh, and Katapesh emerged as an independent nation. Throughout the 3000s, the Rastel-Zatramba Union continued to grow in power and influence, and by 3300 they had claimed the lands around Kibwe and the city of Kibwe itself. Kibwe agreed to membership in the Union without much of a fight, and it was named by Holy Zatramba to be the Union's easternmost provincial capital. Even while conquests like this continued to expand their kingdom, a growing schism was beginning to form between the Rastel and Zatramba tribes. Rastel's leaders began to accuse Zatramba's rulership, with some accuracy, of invoking religious dogma to secure power in the Union. Rastel began to take action against them by imposing tariffs on goods going into the city and offered benefits to attract more trade outside using the savannah routes. An independent faction of holy warriors emerged from Zatramba, and they went out on raids to disrupt the Rastel trade routes and their rapidly growing economy. Officially, the Great Zatramban government disavowed the holy warriors as independent actors. Unofficially, of course, the Zatrambans were funding them. Rasteli factions turned to demonic magic to fend off these warriors. By 3500, Zatramba and Rastel had separated into two kingdoms. By 3550, they were in a state of open war. More and more Rasteli turned to demon worship over the next 50 years as sentiment galvanized against the puritanical northerners. Finally, in 3705, the war came to a sudden and abrupt end, when the governing Rasteli matriarch and her high council summoned a legion of demons from the abyss to besiege Zatramba itself. The city was overwhelmed. After its destruction, however, the demons turned on the Rasteli occultists who had summoned them. Rastel and Liklak were likewise destroyed. More details on the ruins of Rastel and Liklak can be found in my Southern Mwangi Expanse deep dive video. As for Zatramba in the central Mwangi Jungle, it remains a haunted site and a subject of many local legends. Few locals dare venture too close these days. At the end of the year 3705, the surviving city of Kibwe declared itself an independent city-state, and rejected the imperialism of the Zatramba-Restel Union, letting the outlying townships and villages know that Kibwe had no intentions of conquering broader territories. It has remained an independent city-state to this day. In 4606, the event known as the Death of Prophecy occurred. It was heralded by the death of the god Aradin, and by the opening of the Eye of Abendago, which destroyed the growing nations of Lirgan and Yamasa in the west of Garand. In 4609, the fourth bringer Kemet I of Osirian helped overthrow the Kelishite Sultan of occupied Osirian. Osirian was reinstated as an independent nation, thereby ending major Padishah interference in Gurundi lands. The Age of Lost Omens brought with it additional significant changes to the central Mwangi region. The Matangi and the Alijae stepped up their campaign against the demons of Usaro, and in 4710, adventurers managed to kill the Gorilla King himself. In the chaotic aftermath, a mixed team of Matangi and Alijae stole the altar of Angazan to prevent another Gorilla King from ascending. This brings us to today. The Central Mwangi Expanse Gazetteer. As I've done with my previous Mwangi Expanse videos, in this section I'm going to look at some geographic territories, and then at some influential city-states. We're going to start by looking at the territory that marks the northern boundary of the Greater Mwangi Expanse, the Barrier Wall Mountains. Then we're going to look at the mountain passes, the major overland routes that allow one access to the Mwangi Jungle from the north and east, which includes Deech's Gambit, the Korarn Pass, and the Nadele Gap. Finally, we're going to take a look at the absolutely massive central Mwangi Jungle, the huge jungle that dominates not just this region, but which is also the largest contiguous land feature in the entirety of northern Garand. After that, we're going to look at four important city-states. The city of Nantambu, with a look at its famous Magambia Academy, the city of Usaro, with a look at the Charaka and the cult of Angazan, the city-state of Kibwe, the doorway to the south and east, and finally a look at Nagisa and the Alijae Elves. The Barrier Wall Mountains. Stretching majestically above the Mwangi Expanse is the Barrier Wall, a towering mountain range that cuts through the land, creating a natural divide between the lush jungles of the south and the arid deserts of the north. The air at these elevated heights is thin, and those who venture to cross the range often report a constant, deep rumbling. While the abundant greenery of the Mwangi Expanse continues a short way up the barrier wall's southern base, it quickly fades into tough, sparse plant life and hardy crabgrasses. The forested areas at lower altitudes harbor large creatures such as okapi and elephants, but the higher reaches of the mountains remain largely untouched by such fauna due to the hard terrain. In the lofty peaks, animals like goats and shrews seek refuge in remote crevices along the mountainside. Though the barrier wall's terrain poses a challenge for navigation, a few settlements and cultures have emerged to eke out an existence scattered around its environs. The Shisk enclaves. Just as they can be found in the Bandu Hills discussed in my Southern Mwangi Expanse video, the Shisk can be found in the Barrier Wall Mountains as well, particularly in enclaves located south of Deech's Gambit. This region contains the most abundant and well-established Shisk communities in the world, and they are much more populous here than they are in both the Bandu Hills and in the northern Shattered Range, where pockets of them can also be found. Shisks are a reclusive human-like people, but they lack body hair. Instead, their backs are covered in vestigial plumage that now grow only as bony quills that resemble calcified pin feathers. Though Shisks can't fly, these spines are longer around the arms, as if they once had wings, suggesting a possible avian ancestry. With a cultural obsession around learning and keeping secrets, Shisks make for natural scholars. They are also reclusive by nature, making hermits and solitary nomads common. Despite their solitary tendencies, they do have a love of stories and history, and they delight in song, so they can be found across the Mwangi Expanse as traveling bards. Those who remain in the enclaves, however, tend towards isolationism, and their communities are difficult to spot, even by experts. Organic and low-impact adobe buildings carved directly into the mountains, rather than built atop them. Mount Raim and the Gorilla Falls. Like a spike of rock and granite rising above the surrounding highlands, the high peak of Mount Raim serves as the source of the mighty Olongo River. Closest to its source, it tumbles down the Gorilla Falls, the tallest single waterfall in all of Garand, before it flows southwesterly along the jungle's edge to the ruins of Sele, where it joins the Mbembe River. From there it winds south and west into the jungle, passing Jaha before being joined by the Defaka River and emptying into Lake Okota. Among the craggy rocks and caverns around the falls, various mythic beasts like manticores, drakes, and wyverns make their domain. Additionally, the intelligent winged gorillas known as the Deri make their home around the falls, the creatures for which the falls are named. The Tower of the Stone Wardens and the Thuvian mountain trails. Within the barrier wall, various isolated groups inhabit the rugged terrain. One notable faction is the Stone Wardens, a sect of druids situated in the central mountain range that marks the boundary between the Mwangi Expanse and the nation of Thuvia. They have made their headquarters in a watchtower that had originally been constructed by stone giants. Perched atop one of the barrier wall's tallest peaks, the tower commands a view visible from over 100 miles away on clear days. It is said that when the sun aligns directly above the tower, it shimmers ever so slightly. Some rumors even attribute the occasional thunder-like rumbling of the barrier wall to originate from this structure. The chief responsibilities of the Stone Wardens is the safeguarding of certain important concealed sites within the mountains, and the shielding of local wildlife from the large predatory monsters that nest in the region. Ironically, this protective role has led most merchant caravans traveling between Thuvia and the Mwangi Expanse to traverse Stone Warden territory, much to the druids' constant annoyance. This irritation is further compounded by the perpetual presence of students in search of the nearby legendary Citadel of the Alchemist, where Artorchus Kiran, the creator of the Sun Orchid Elixir, is said to still reside. They maintain a reluctant alliance with the people of Thuvia, offering safe passage to those invited to the Citadel in exchange for an agreement that they will deter other outsiders from prying too deeply into their territory. Limani, the Jarek capital. Thuvian merchants are not the only people to make use of the remote mountain trails that connect Thuvia and Garand. The Jareks, a nomadic halfling people that travel the length and breadth of the barrier wall, can also be found here. Their rugged lifestyle among the peaks has shaped their features. Their skin is deeply tanned and weathered from spending most of their lives outdoors, and their bodies are slightly shorter and stockier compared to other halflings. This prowess steers Jareks towards more physical pursuits, such as combat, with many Jarek children growing up wrestling one another for fun. The rough nature of their endeavors leaves many Jareks with black eyes or scars, something they wear with pride. The stout mountain halflings here enjoy bombastic hairstyles, and among men, impressive facial hair. The Stone Wardens have a better relationship with the Jareks than they do with the Thuvian merchants headed to Jahmal by way of the overland trails, because the Jareks have no political agenda, and no desire to transform the unique landscape of the barrier wall to better suit their needs. It suits them just fine as it is. Jarek society is a scattered thing, with most Jareks forming small groups and tribes in their own respective mountains. These groups usually number in the dozens, though some reach into the hundreds. They form hunting and gathering parties, moving across the peaks as they require to survive, with some groups keeping closer to the base of the mountains where food and game are more plentiful. Though most Jarek tribes remain mobile, they do maintain a few settlements, most notably the halfling city of Limani. The city is a hub for thousands of Jarek halflings, and is known for its seasonal festivals where Jareks trade food, stories, and fisticuffs in the name of friendly competition. In Limani and other larger communities, Jareks who share common interests frequently unite in sociable and vibrant assemblies known as bilbands. Functioning as something of a cross between a social club and a gang, these groups consist of hardened Jareks gathering for activities like sparring, sports, and related pursuits, or assembling to partake in lively debates and collaborate on artistic endeavors. Mount Padipe. Just east of Limani lies another significant mountain peak in the barrier wall range. Mount Padipe isn't a singular lofty peak standing above the rest of the range like Mount Rame or Mount Elsel in the east. Instead, the entire range rises upwards collectively towards the high point of Padipe, as if the earth itself was swollen under the mountain range. Some Mwangi tribes posit a great angry god buried underground once attempted to punch his way out of the earth here. The Earth Spear. The precise location of the legendary library known as the Earth Spear remains a mystery, and some even question its existence, though hearsay has it located somewhere between Mount Padipe and the Korarn Pass. Other accounts suggest that the Earth Spear's elusive nature can be attributed to potent magic that purportedly relocates the library to a place where no one is actively searching for it. Legend has it that the Earth Spear will manifest itself when the Expanse's people are in dire need, yet this does not deter enthusiastic scholars from persistently venturing into the barrier wall in pursuit of this secret repository. Ancient tales assert that it houses copies of every text ever written or collected by Old Mage Jatembe after Earthfall, including the renowned Last Record, a manuscript said to hold immense power and significance and safeguarded in the Earth Spear's deepest recesses. The contents of these records are shrouded in uncertainty, but a prevalent myth suggests that they contain instructions designed to reintroduce magic into the world in the event of a second apocalypse. The Gem Basket. South of the Koran Pass and located roughly where the borders of the Mwangi Expanse, Osirian, and Katapesh all converge, is a portion of the barrier wall mountains known as the Gem Basket. Spanning an expanse of nearly a mile in diameter, the Gem Basket encompasses razored peaks, unexpected drops, rocky terrain, and impassable elevations. Within this area, natural resources abound. Nodes of rare gems and precious metals lie beneath loose shales, veins of shimmering ore traverse rocky walls, and ancient treasures repose in the remnants of subterranean chambers. Despite the Gem Basket's widespread reputation in all three nearby lands, a significant portion of its riches remains untapped. The journey through the treacherous barrier wall proves challenging, and the resources themselves are situated in demanding locations. Steep cliffs, unfathomable chasms, and precarious rock formations guard many of the treasures. More critically, the paths leading to the Gem Basket pass through the territories of several perilous creatures, notably a nest of manticores and a rumored red dragon. In the latter case, while reliable sightings of the creature are lacking, badly mauled and scorched corpses occasionally surface on the steep mountain slopes, lending credence to the claim that such a creature nests there. In addition, the native denizens of the land surrounding the Gem Basket are the malicious Lucrotas. Although appearing animalistic in nature, having the bodies of lean cats and the faces of snarling badgers, these creatures have human levels of intelligence and are known to worship Lamashtu. They frequently make alliances with Lamashtu-worshipping gnolls that are also common in the region. The Mountain Passes. There are three notable passes through the mountains. The first leads into Rahadum and is called Deech's Gambit. The second leads into Osirian and is called the Koran Pass. And the third leads into Nex and is called the Nadele Gap. A fourth unofficial pass into the Mwangi region could be considered the high mountain trails that are trafficked by the Jarek halflings and protected by the Stone Wardens, which I've already discussed, which sort of connect Thuvia to the Mwangi Expanse as well. Those are not technically valleys that cut through the mountains, however, merely well-traveled mountain trails, and require significant effort to cross. Deech's Gambit. In southern Thuvia, the barrier wall bifurcates around a low mountain valley, known as Deech's Gambit. Through the valley, one can almost reach the source of the eastern fork of the Mbembe, but it requires passage through a treacherous and narrow mountain ravine that cuts across the southern barrier wall. Nevertheless, Rahadumi and Jahan merchants have learned to brave the trail over the last 10 years, making use of the Mbembe River to ferry goods between Jaha and Rahadum. Although perilous, this is a vital trade connection, as the Jahans and the Rahadumi have much in common, not least of which is a shared ancestry dating back to the days of the founding of Lirgin in the wake of the Oath Wars. The Koran Pass. Despite also being a wide valley that cuts through the barrier wall, the Koran Pass sees significantly less traffic than Deech's Gambit in the east and the Nadele Gap to the south. This is for two reasons. First, there are few major city-states located at the northeastern end of the Mwangi Jungle. Both the city-state of Jaha in the north and the city-state of Kibwe in the southeast are located at some considerable distance from the Koran Pass. Secondly, on the Osiriani side, the pass skirts the edges of the dangerous territory known as the Footprints of Rovagug, where powerful dragons claim dominion of the volcanic land. The haunted slave trenches of Hakotep also give pause to travelers making use of this pass. However, the pass itself is not uninhabited. Here, the Womoto people make their home, yet another Mwangi ethnic group, albeit one that is much rarer than the Zenj, Bekyar, Bonawat, and Mauxi people. Even rarer than the Kaldaru people of Senghor, the Womotos inhabit villages scattered throughout the barrier wall, but especially in the pass and near the ruins of the shory sky city of Ko. One standout trait of the Womotos is the prevalence of magically gifted individuals born in their villages. Whether due to the proximity of the ruins of Ko, a hidden shory ancestral legacy, or mere happenstance, Womotos boast a higher proportion of individuals capable of wielding magic than any other population in the Mwangi Expanse. The elder sorcerers invest considerable effort nurturing the potential of those inclined towards magical talents, passing down cultural wisdom through the generations. Womoto sorcerers bear intricate tattoos sneaking down their arms. Upon completing the sleeves, an apprentice ascends to the status of master. Practicality guides Womotos in their approach to the nearby ruins. A generations-long relationship exists between the ruins and the villages, with Womotos scavenging the remnants and in return protecting them from other potential external disturbances. When caravans do make their way along the Koran Pass, they are quick to help them make the journey, but also to prevent them from accessing their sacred ruins. They are willing to trade certain artifacts they find with traveling merchants, however. Wamotos possess extensive knowledge of magical artifacts, emerging as the foremost experts on the workings of Ko's remnants. Despite their family-oriented nature and encouragement to stay close to home, Wamotos also value independence and personal journeys. Upon reaching adulthood, Wamotos embark on travels from their villages, returning only after satisfying their wanderlust. Though relatively simply constructed, Wamoto settlements exhibit architectural resemblances to the nearby ruins of Ko. Glass ornaments, available in a myriad of hues, are a common adornment, and Wamotos have seamlessly incorporated scavenged artifacts into their structures. Many of what endures in Wamoto settlements today comprises the pragmatic remnants of Ko, repurposed magical circuits and cores, occasionally encased in unadorned metal. Wamoto life predominantly unfolds as a tranquil existence, though this tranquility is not taken for granted. The ruins of the Sky City serve as a constant reminder of unexpected life-changing dangers. Thankfully, the secluded location and precipitous environs of Wamoto settlements mean they seldom confront external threats. Wamoto sorcerers and artificers actively guard against subterranean creatures, however, which sometimes make their way through the deep cavernous passages of the Barrier Wall Mountains. Wamoto scouts nurture eagles, and it is a common sight to see Wamoto people with a protective sleeve ferrying an eagle from place to place, and using them as scouts for potential threats to their domain. As for the ruins of the old Sky Citadel itself, it presents a scattered amalgamation of neglected machinery, natural phenomena, and isolated hazards characteristic of long-abandoned but powerfully magical cities. Lingering traces of potent magic continue to animate ancient mechanisms concealed deep beneath the ruins, which unleash periodic resonant rumbles that echo throughout the valley. Once the capital city of the Shori Empire, and the first to ascend into the air, Ko's architecture epitomizes the pinnacle of its civilization. Millennia after Ko's destruction, remnants of brightly colored glass and densely packed infrastructure endure. It is rumored that the ruins are sustained by the long-lost magic of the Shori, persistently emanating from its foundations. Despite centuries of scavenging, the belief persists that not even a tenth of Ko's artifacts and secrets have been uncovered so far. The Ndele Gap. The Ndele Gap is a much more substantive pass through the mountains than the Koran passes, a wide, flat valley that demarcates the northern mountain range known as the Barrier Wall and the Shattered Range of the south. Notably, the infamous Road of Gold crosses the Ndele Gap, connecting the city-state of Kibwe with the powerful magocracy of Nex in the east. Protected by powerful Nexian magic, the Road of Gold has been a critical thoroughfare for trade between western and eastern Garand for almost 4,000 years. On its northern edge, a magnificent structure of ancient stone juts out over the southern Barrier Wall Mountains, overlooking the entirety of the pass. This ancient and long-abandoned dwarven-looking keep is Spiro Sparrow. Although seemingly of dwarven craft, upon first inspection, some signs point to other possible builders, and its true architects remain shrouded in mystery. Here, colossal cyclopean stones are meticulously fitted together, with no space for even a knife to slip between them, sophisticated stonework even for dwarves. Despite the impossible scale of the stones used, many insist that the structure bears the unmistakable marks of dwarfcraft, and it is therefore a mysterious and secret 10th Sky Citadel that had been lost to time. Others believe it to be the work of some ancient civilization of giants, or some other ancient people. Time has left scant clues to unravel this enigma, and explorers that have ventured here continue to stumble upon concealed passages or basements within the fortress, suggesting it has housed multiple occupants over its long millennia of existence. Presently the fortress plays host to a faction of Katapeshi gnolls, led by Gold Beetle, a matriarch, visionary, and demagogue. Gold Beetle hailed originally from Avestan, and served as a mercenary in Galt and Andoran for several years before traveling south, with dreams of establishing a gnoll nation in the wilds of Katapesh or in the eastern reaches of the Mwangi Expanse, where her people could be found in abundance. Seizing control of Spiro Sparrow with her followers, she has begun to actively recruit from the local Mwangi gnoll population. Her promise of a gnoll land and her desire to re-establish gnoll worship of the more traditional Kolo gods over the singular worship of Lamashtu has made her a popular figure among her kinsfolk, and the numbers of her followers have swelled in the foothills of Spiro Sparrow. As more and more gnoll camps continue to appear north of the Ndele Gap, raids on Nexian and Kibwe caravans are becoming increasingly frequent. Both sides of the Road of Gold are now considering military means of dispersing the growing gnoll population in the north. The Mwangi Jungle. Lush, impenetrable, impossibly vast, and teeming with vitality, The Mwangi Jungle stands as the largest tropical rainforest in the Inner Sea region. Extending approximately 800 miles from end to end, its verdant canopies harbor innumerable microcosms. Surrounded by mountains on 3 out of 4 sides, the Mwangi Jungle experiences persistent easterly winds that propel moist air from the Eye of Abendego and collide with the surrounding mountains. Consequently, copious rainfall, almost 12 feet of rain annually, saturates the landscape. This water accumulates in Lake Okota, a colossal inland sea at the heart of the jungle, before flowing through the Vanji River and emptying back out into the ocean. The abundance of water nurtures a profusion of plant life and fosters a unique ecosystem. Towering trees in the jungle commonly reach heights of 100 to 150 feet, with certain giants doubling that size. Their impressive stature and density creates distinct layers within the forest. At the zenith is the canopy layer, a dense expanse of greenery 100 feet above the ground, interwoven with broad leaves and creeping plants, serving as a habitat for countless animals and some indigenous peoples who dwell without ever touching the forest floor. Birds, monkeys, frogs, snakes, and an infinite array of insects inhabit the canopy. Below lies the understory, darker and more shaded, hosting larger creatures such as pythons and leopards, as well as an abundance of ferns. Finally, the forest floor, rarely touched by the sunlight, serves as the habitat for large beasts, notably crocodiles and forest elephants, which remain close to the rivers. Navigating this dense jungle proves challenging for the unprepared. The dense foliage and concealed sky can make navigation nearly impossible, and any form of travel becomes an arduous endeavor of sweat and effort. River travel offers the swiftest option, although treacherous rapids, swift currents, and hidden sandbars don't make it a particularly safe option. Still better than overland travel, however, which is impeded by sudden ravines and thorny shrubbery, meaning most travelers will have to carry a machete just for passage. The jungle is also home to numerous poison plants, venomous insects, and voracious predators, ranging from the mundane to the more mystical or even demonic. Speaking of demonic entities and artifacts, another threat posed to travelers in the jungle is the frequent presence of Qliphoth runestones. Before creation itself, the Qliphoths and the Proteans waged a great war for dominance of the outer planes, but they were both of them surprised to find that the eons of the astral plane would take advantage of this conflict to order the nascent multiverse. The changes they wrought partially shattered the abyss, and some of these shards shot through the plains and landed in Galarian. Known as Qliphoth runestones, these strange edifices can be found scattered throughout the Mwangi Jungle. Covered in bizarre symbols, these corrupt and poison all animal and plant life around them. You can see more information about the war between order and chaos at the dawn of time in both my Protean and Eon religion videos. Because of these many dangers, permanent inhabitants of the jungle, such as the Bekyar and Zenj humans, the Matangi orcs and the Alijae Elves, or the Taralu dwarves, have developed their own methods to ease travel and avoid predators, though even they seldom venture far from their home territories. Here, an ancient city may lie buried just half a day's trek from a bustling trading post, completely concealed by the terrain. Unique points of interest located in the jungle include the Colossus of Senbaji. In the distant northern stretches of the jungle looms an extraordinary and otherworldly statue known as the Colossus of Senbaji. This towering sculpture reaches a staggering height of 200 feet, surpassing even the loftiest trees in the vicinity. Although the passage of time has taken its toll, the Colossus appears roughly humanoid, a warrior leaning on a spear, bare-chested, adorned in a kilt and sandals. 2 peculiar features distinguish the statue. Its hands unmistakably bear 7 fingers, and its face is smooth and featureless, devoid of even a hint of eyes or mouth. The inhabitants of Senbaji, a local Zenj community, revere the Colossus as their guardian, and celebrate grand festivals every season. During these festivities, youths ascend the statue, adorning it with paints and garlands. They affectionately refer to it as the Star Watcher, and claim that Desna sent it in ancient times to watch over them. Whether true or not, as Desna holy books make no mention of such a being, the people of Senbaji have experienced minimal troubles with plague or famine throughout their history. Some have wondered if there is a connection between the Colossus of Senbaji and the statues constructed by the statue builder culture of Eastern Garand, but no such link is confirmed yet. An Avestinian dwarven scholar named Marhelm has asserted that he was permitted to examine the Colossus with the approval of the Senbaji tribe. However, upon discovering a metallic layer beneath the stone, he was promptly instructed to leave. Marhelm is currently in search of assistants who might aid him in securing a second examination, employing diplomacy, guile, or force. The Drowning Stones. Once a majestic city adorned with blue stone ziggurats and graceful towers, the Drowning Stones faced a swift abandonment as the surrounding region succumbed to submersion into swampland as the ecosystem around it shifted relatively quickly. The emergence of a bloodthirsty tribe of Ulat Kini in large numbers from the encroaching waters hastened the exodus of its original inhabitants. Over time, the city's history and its original name have been swallowed by the expanding muck, leaving only the central citadel atop a crest of relatively dry land overlooking the mire-tombed remnants of the rest of the city. The Ulat Kini tribe here fiercely defend the ruins against external intrusions. They also guard their home against mysterious threats emerging from below, as somewhere beneath the city, whether submerged in the swamps or hidden within the dungeons of the tower, exists a significant entrance to the Darklands realm of Narvoth, where the Ulat Kini themselves originally hailed from. The Doorway to the Red Star. A sight in countless Mwangi legends, the doorway to the Red Star appears as a circle of magnetic megaliths, bathed in crimson. Over the centuries, various cultures have emerged around these standing stones, only to succumb to the inexorable march of time. The nihilistic Throat of Nothingness cult once venerated these stones, another nefarious group of the ancient world legendarily dispatched by Old Mage Jatembe. Today, however, the lands around it remain quiet. Undeniably true is the fact that these stones channel potent and unpredictable magic, with rituals cast within their confines yielding power of an order of magnitude greater than anywhere else. What many fail to grasp is that the doorway to the Red Star is precisely what the name implies. In ancient times, a conclave of extraterrestrial sages, known as the Contemplatives of Ashok, constructed the doorway to link their homeworld of Akaton, the fourth planet in the solar system, with Golarion. However, the doorway was flawed, only infrequently allowing passage to the Red Planet. Having witnessed the consequences of their teachings giving rise to strange cults on the other side, the Contemplatives have largely allowed the portal to lie dormant. Nonetheless, should someone manage to open the doorway and reach these floating brain-like otherworldly sages, they possess a wealth of knowledge to impart, provided mortal mans can grasp their profound complexity. Dokkaran and Saruk. At some point during the period of peace brought about by the Shori Empire, when the power of Usaro was in regression, a great Zenj village named Dokkaran was constructed on the northern edge of Lake Okota. Unfortunately, the city was besieged by another dark power. A mad follower of Zon Kuthon came to Dokkaran one day and brought with him a magical music box, a powerful cursed artifact called the Song of Extinction. Tiruat the Lost he was called, and he used this weapon to devour the souls of the people of Dokkaran and their Alijae defenders. Those that did not succumb to the weapon's power he either bound to his service or they fled before him. He then claimed the city for himself. Although the artifact gave him unnatural long life, it did not preserve his mind, and as a result, Tiruat slowly descended ever deeper into madness, protected by his bound servants and his pet abyssal tigers. The ruins of Dokkaran remain under his control even to this day. The survivors of the destruction of Dokkaran eventually migrated north and founded the city of Saruk just over 1,000 years ago. The collective trauma of the Dokkaran exiles made the people of Saruk turn to faith. Over time, Saruk began to serve as a revered pilgrimage destination and a hub of sacred knowledge dedicated to the Archon Lord Winless. Flourishing for centuries, Saruk's libraries were rumored to rival even those of Nantambu. Winless, a deity I discuss in more detail in my Archon's Religion video, is the imperial lord of ceremonies and religious services, and as such, his followers in the city welcomed many diverse faiths in their midst, including among them the worship of Aradin, making Saruk one of the preeminent places of Aradnite worship in the Mwangi Expanse. In 4606, when the return of Aradin was prophesied, hundreds of pilgrims congregated at Saruk, anticipating a grand welcome ceremony overseen by the herald of Winless, Anwigasi, the penultimate quill. A half-celestial Kotal, Anwigasi is believed to be the offspring of Winless's first priestess and a plumed dragon. In any case, instead of Aradin's return, the pilgrims were met with news of his demise. Anwigasi, with compassion, provided shelter and magical protection to the stranded pilgrims. Following this unforeseen turn of events, the herald faced a dilemma: how to care for the pilgrims now marooned far from their homes. Over the ensuing century, Anwigasi reluctantly assumed the role of Saruk's protector. Presently, the city stands as a sanctuary and quasi-university amid some of Garen's most perilous terrain. Its inhabitants take turns cultivating the fields and maintaining the library. While Anwigasi harbors a deep desire to return to the heavens, recognizing that his brief sojourn has spanned 5 generations already, he is full aware of the potential perils awaiting the gentle people and their repository of knowledge if he were to depart. The Pyramid of Ktumu. Shrouded in obscurity and faded from memory, the Pyramid of Ktumu stands as a peculiar cone-shaped structure, entangled by the encroaching jungle. A radiant swarm of fireflies envelops the pyramid, yet these are no ordinary insects. The children of Kitumu, glimmering in luminous display, possess an unnatural intelligence and a bite that burns with terrible intensity. The scant legends that whisper of this place describe Kitumu herself as a mighty spirit or a minor deity, a sovereign ruling over fireflies and flames alike. Allegedly, she slumbers within her pyramid hive until awakened by a hunger that cannot be placated through sacrifice. If any fervent human devotees of this monstrous firefly goddess do exist, they don't often venture into civilization. Majer. A diminutive tributary of the river Badonge in the eastern jungle, this watercourse has harbored an unsettling reputation among its local inhabitants. Vegetation along the riverbank appears sickly and feeble, and only the hardiest of fish inhabit its waters. During the night, peculiar lights illuminate the sky above the river's headwaters deep in the jungle. Those who venture there after sunset report hearing an unusual buzzing noise audible from a considerable distance. Not constant, but irregularly modulated. While most travelers along the river emerge unscathed, occasional disappearances occur. The bodies of the missing individuals are later discovered, frozen and shattered, as if plummeted from a significant height. Some of those unfortunate souls exhibit peculiar wounds on their heads, suggesting the removal of the skull's top portion and the extraction of the brain. Attempts at closer investigation are hindered by the presence of the sapthorn gnolls, who operate in the area. These gnolls issue warnings to strangers and brandish remarkably crafted sky metal weapons, ready to fend off any excessively curious interloper. The Fountain of Tabis. Throughout the centuries, countless foreign explorers have embarked on treacherous journeys into the heart of the Mwangi Jungle, driven by the elusive quest for the legendary Fountain of Youth, a rumor that began to spread ever since Taldan explorers discovered the lost city of Osibu, as described in my Southern Mwangi video. The closest any explorers have found to such a thing are the strange pools located at the Fountain of Tabis. Protected by a vigilant local Bekyar tribe, the fountain's waters do bestow a form of youth, but perhaps not as might be expected. Upon consuming the fountain's waters, individuals meet an immediate demise, only to be reincarnated as a young child, potentially of a different ancestry or gender. These rejuvenated children lack direct memories of their prior lives, but experience sporadic and unsettling flashbacks from their past life. Although the protective indigenous people fiercely oppose outsiders accessing the fountain, if those undergoing this transformation can be safely separated from their party, they are embraced by the tribe and raised as their own. Occasionally, Bekyar tribesfolk here are also known to bestow this second life upon aged and ailing members of their own community, who have earned this honor through remarkable deeds. Renage's Circle. In the heart of the jungle lies a peculiar clearing known as Renage's Circle. Encircled by a dense, almost wall-like barrier of jungle cypress, this small vacant space centers around an ancient and contorted baobab tree. Split in half, the tree envelops a cart-sized sphere made of black basalt. An eerie silence pervades the entire clearing, dissuading deadly predators and malevolent forces from approaching willingly. The magic exuded from the circle is disconcerting to those who approach it. Local legend recounts a tale from the distant past when the land was inhabited by two powerful spirit brothers, Renage and Golokango. Renage, benevolent and cherished by the jungle's people, found himself at odds with Golokango, a malevolent and envious spirit. Their disagreement escalated into a fierce battle, concluding when the compassionate spirit imprisoned his malevolent brother within stone. Over time, Renage grew into a magnificent tree, enveloping Golokango. While the authenticity of this tale remains uncertain, what is clear is that potent spells were woven into the circle to ward off evil, a task undertaken with purpose rather than whim. Gosre's Pool. Nestled in the concealed recesses of the forest between the Okota River and the Jasut Flow, Gosre's Pool is a cenote approximately 15 feet in diameter, with waters that possess an eerie clarity. Devoid of fish and lacking plants around its edges, this sinkhole is avoided by the few locals that are aware of its existence. Their caution is well-founded, for two water elementals, guardians appointed by the wind and the waves, inhabit the pool. Those who successfully navigate past these elementals, whether through force or displays of reverence, can gain access to the pool's blessing. Imbibing the waters of Gosre's Pool leads to the purification of the drinker from all ailments and diseases. However, the pool harbors an even greater secret, known only to a select few within Gosre's clergy, the power to command the very waters and rivers of the Mwangi Jungle itself. The ruins of Zatramba. In its prime, a millennium ago, holy Zatramba stood as the preeminent city of the Mwangi Expanse, a sacred hub dedicated to Pharasma and the epicenter of the highly influential Zatramba-Rastel Union. The inhabitants of Zatramba constructed fortresses, treasure houses, schools, and granaries. As a gesture of gratitude to their patrons, grand shrines to their ancestors were erected, along with a formidable labyrinthine temple devoted to the Lady of Graves. For centuries life flourished in Zatramba, but then a schism between Zatramba and its southern ally Rastel led to a great civil war. Zatramba succumbed to demonic hordes who seized the city as their own. Today it teeters on the brink of being half lost. Unlike the forsaken Erd and the ancient Savanth Yi, Zatramba rose to prominence in more recent times, with records attesting to its true location. However, the jungle area it occupies is cursed and haunted by demons, dissuading any sensible individual from risking their life by venturing there. While demons still lurk in abundance, the heart of the city is presently under the dominion of the cunning green dragon Olohimba. Today, only the most recklessly dare explore Zatramba, a fact that suits her just fine. Dwelling in holy Zatramba has altered Olohimba, who, while as crafty and manipulative as any green dragon, surprisingly adheres to a Pharasman orthodoxy. She views it as her divine calling to reclaim the sacred city. Thus Olohimba has been diligently purging the domain of demons and undead, while simultaneously perpetuating the legend of the demon-haunted Zatramba to dissuade intruders. Unwelcome visitors may risk being the dragon's prey, unless they can demonstrate their allegiance to Pharasma, in which case Olohimba may become a demanding yet generous benefactor. Kembe. Like Dokkaran, the Drowning Stones, and even mighty Zatramba, Kembe represents another long-lost ruined city-state, dating back to some unknown period in Mwangi history. Relatively little information exists about the site of Kembe, and whether it constitutes a city or an immense temple complex remains uncertain. The structure within Kembe are arranged in 3 concentric rings, the innermost designed for a race of giants, the middle clearly tailored for human inhabitants, and the outer perfectly suited for gnomes and halflings. While some propose the possibility of Kembe being a mixed-race society, with the order of the rings possibly indicating a race-based social structure, the myths depicted on the city's walls convey an altogether different narrative. According to the carvings, the inhabitants of Kembe diminished in size over time due to an unknown curse or interaction with Galarian's magic. While scholars may dismiss this fantastical tale, attempts to study these ruins and prove their veracity have been difficult, as recently the ruins of Kembe have been claimed by sinister forces. Savanth Yi, Ilmuria, and Tazion. An ancient city with roots stretching back to the pre-Earthfall age of legends was established by the Aslanti in honor of Savath's triumph over Idursius. Guarded by 7 mystical towers, this outpost thrived until Earthfall's cataclysmic upheaval sent it into obscurity for 10,000 years. Rediscovered in 4710 by the same group of adventurers who ultimately slew the Gorilla King, the city witnessed the reactivation of the 7 towers and the defeat of a resurgent serpentfolk threat. However, by 4718, Savanth Yi's existence was publicly disclosed, leading to a chaotic blend of academic, geopolitical, and theological strife. Currently, the ruins host several major expeditions, comprised of the Megambians, the Pathfinders, various archaeological groups, tomb robbers, scholars, last chancers, and adventurers. Representatives from Mazali and New Thassalon vie for political dominance, while indigenous Charaka and humans who had inhabited the city for generations are struggling against the tide of foreign visitors with a curiosity for anything Aslanti. Adding to the complexity, not all the serpent folk are as extinct as believed. Coming up from the depths of Ilmuria, the serpent folk city located beneath the ruins of Savanth Yi, Zikishaza, a renegade serpent folk sorcerer and engineer, has infiltrated the expeditions by consuming and replacing one of their leaders, setting the stage for a potentially explosive situation. Savanth Yi isn't the only Aslanti ruin in the surrounding area. Established as a staging ground from which to launch an invasion of the serpent folk city of Ilmuria, a smaller military fortress called Tazion can be found not too far from Savanth Yi. Substantially less intact than Savanth Yi, Tazion has nonetheless attracted several treasure seekers of its own. The area of the Bloodletting Songs. Standing as a small plateau towards the southern end of the jungle, spanning about half a mile across and elevating 200 feet above the jungle floor, the area of the Bloodletting Song is dubbed a cursed place by the local Zend tribes. Here the plants contort into twisted and sickly forms, while the birds nesting along its rocky sides appear as mutated and malformed creatures. These birds are violent and territorial, tormenting any attempting to ascend its scant paths up the plateau with songs that induce bleeding from the eyes, ears, and mouth. Children born in proximity to the plateau often display strange markings on their bodies in an inscrutable script that eludes interpretation. According to local lore, the area was once a site where a tribe of demon worshippers conducted sacrifices, and the birds haunting the area are believed to be the vengeful spirits of the deceased victims. Those few who have attempted to explore the plateau have brought back reports of a person-sized black stone that rests at the heart of the place, its crude surface adorned with myriad staring eyes and the same cryptic script. The major polities of the central Mwangi region. The city-state of Nantambu. Nantambu stands as a radiant jewel in the heart of the central Mwangi region. The oldest and most sophisticated city of its kind, with a powerful and ancient lineage dating back to the last days of the Age of Anguish, Nantambu has been instrumental in providing a shared common language to the broader Mwangi region. Many foreigners often characterize the Mwangi tongue as a single language, shared across the continent south of the barrier wall. In fact, it comprises many different dialects, but most trace their lineage back to Zamba, the language spoken in Nantambu and its surrounding villages. Zamba is an ancient language, with a consistently ordered set of grammatical principles that make it sound archaic to most other Mwangi people. This beautiful city is interlaced with canals, and every window and door is adorned by shimmering glass trinkets. It serves as the perfect domicile for the Magambia, the oldest and most esteemed school of arcane magic on Galarian. Positioned on the Vanji, the city acts as a central hub for both ships traveling upriver from the sea and caravans navigating the surrounding jungles. The city's open-air markets are a sensory delight, with the aromas of rich spices and rare woods permeating the air. Glassmakers and cloth merchants contribute to a vibrant display of color and designs. The majority of Nantambu's population consists of humans, predominantly Zenj, followed by a significant number of Bonuat and a few Mauxi people. In addition, the city hosts communities of Ekujae elves, gnolls, halflings, lizardfolk, catfolk, anadis, and a handful of other individuals from rarer ancestries. Founded by old mage Jatembe's disciples as a center of learning, Nantambu has evolved into a democratic haven over the centuries. The presence of the Magambia enhances the city's prestige, ensuring the safety and stability of its inhabitants. Through diplomatically negotiated treaties, the city maintains peace with its neighbors, and relies on no standing army for protection. Remarkably, no attack against Nantambu has ever succeeded, as the formidable Tempest Sun mages of the Magambia have managed to contain all altercations directly. Consequently, the city houses few soldiers, and its residents predominantly engage in the arts, particularly glassmaking and woodcrafting. Governance is handled by an elected council, allowing any eligible citizen to vote in elections or run for office. At the heart of the city, the Magambia attracts eager students from across the Mwangi Expanse and beyond. Renowned arcane instructors extend their lessons beyond the academy's confines, often lecturing in courtyards rather than traditional classrooms. Students are not confined to specific areas, with those of means having apartments in various districts and less affluent individuals comfortably residing in the academy's many dormitories. Nantambu's culture revolves around a communal ethos. Even the poorest citizens of Nantambu have access to food, clean water, and a secure place to sleep. Although the Magambia attracts a lot of attention, the majority of Nantambu's populace consists of artisans and crafters, not wizards, with glassworkers standing out as the most prominent among them. These highly skilled individuals create a diverse array of masterpieces, ranging from minuscule beads adorning citizens' attire to the charms that embellish the windows and doors of Nantambu's domiciles. Foodstuff is also diverse in the city. The city's canals are rich in fish from the Vanji River, complementing the fruits and vegetables sent as tribute by the surrounding villages in exchange for protection. Ovens are rare, making hearth-griddled flatbreads a staple, which serve both as a dish and a utensil for flavorful stews and fluffy grains. Temples of varying size can be found all over Nantambu. Any citizen can likely direct a visitor to the temple they seek, even if it is not one they frequent themselves. Temples of the gods of the heaven and axis can all be found here, as well as a surprising number of temples dedicated to more sinister deities. In matters of faith, Nantambians uphold a personal choice in the belief of deities. No particular deity holds greater reverence, and none are shunned or forbidden. It is considered impolite to proselytize or question someone else's beliefs. This lack of a state religion also means there is no universally held holy day among Nantambians. Each shop or family takes off days as needed, resulting in inconsistent closures between shops. One temple and deity of note, however, is the Hall of Mazlidae, dedicated to the goddess of community, which stands as the largest of the major temples. Here, meals are provided to all who request them. Many Nantambians contribute by serving at least one day a year in their kitchen or cleaning its halls. Movement within the city predominantly occurs on foot or through the use of shallow boats navigating the canals. Although the streets are wide enough to accommodate standard carts, they are primarily reserved for pedestrian traffic, with most transportation happening on the canals. Flat-bottomed boats with shallow drafts are employed for transporting cargo, while individuals often opt for rides in vibrantly adorned wherries with colorful canopies. Despite the canals having minimal current, the rowers, or occasionally sails, propel boats with sufficient speed to facilitate smooth commerce. Affluent citizens possess stylish and ornamental vessels designed for both transportation and a favored recreational activity, racing. The most widely attended race is the first regatta of the spring season, with a route that traverses every neighborhood, with an atmosphere that becomes more like a parade towards the regatta's end, with cheering crowds lining the canals and showing off their new finery made over the long rainy season. Of course, the most recognizable feature of the city is the Magambia. According to legend, old Mage Jatembe assembled the 10 magic warriors and vanquished the gravest threats faced by humanity in the Age of Anguish. Then, when the world was safe, he and his disciples established a school to disseminate knowledge, allowing Garen's inhabitants to defend themselves, prosper, and create. The initial project was the Circle, an edifice supported by pillars resembling the various elements of magic. This structure, capped with a glass dome, still stands at the center of the Magambia. Beneath the dome, benches surround an ever-changing mosaic map, depicting the rivers and jungles of the Mwangi Expanse. It also illustrates major disasters, from volcano eruptions to forest fires, and can even showcase the effects of spells with a large enough area of effect. The Circle served as the primary classroom for the first several years of instruction, and continues to be used for teaching today. Subsequently, 10 buildings were erected, each dedicated to one of the 10 magic warriors. Initially serving as homes and workspaces, these structures expanded over time into dormitories and classrooms. Students flocked to learn from these distinguished figures, initially from nearby villages and eventually from across the entire Mwangi Expanse. Eventually, Jatembe and his warriors, though likely made immortal through their powerful mastery of magic, drifted out of history, and they were slowly replaced by less legendary, but still prodigiously gifted instructors. When the magic warriors retreated from daily affairs, their successors, called the Council of Learned Ones, erected signature pillars, each depicting one of Jatembe's 10 followers. The Learned Ones continued Jatembe's legacy, providing leadership for both the Magambia and the burgeoning city of Nantambu. Adhering to Jatembe's wishes, they refrained from governing the town, ensuring that its citizens could choose their own leaders. Despite the city's prosperity being closely tied to the school's popularity, the Learned Ones maintained these principles. Students continued to contribute to the city as part of their curriculum, extending their classes beyond the school's walls and into the community. Students of the Magambia quickly adapted to daily life in Nantambu, encouraged by the Learned One's teaching style and sense of community. Teachers actively engaged inquisitive minds during classes in the city's courtyards and piazzas, fostering a culture of assistance and friendship between students, instructors, and the citizenry. While some candidates independently travel to Nantambu to present themselves to the Magambia for admission, other students are recruited, with specialists among the Learned Ones who are dedicated to traversing the Mwangi Expanse and beyond to identify potential students. Prospective candidates undergo a series of tasks to determine their talents, with acceptance not solely contingent on talent, but also on attitude and motivation. Larger towns and cities in the Mwangi Expanse maintain dedicated teams to escort students from their villages to the Magambia, providing a safe haven during their seeking mages' journeys. Even arrival does not signify the start of their studies. On arrival, students complete a period of public service called the Perquisite, and only then can they choose a branch of magic at the Magambia to focus their studies on. The longer one stays in study, the more opportunities there are for achieving higher ranks within the college, but there is no official graduation ceremony or set term of study. Education here is a lifelong pursuit. Some students choose to stay at the Magambia and become instructors, while others seek to apply their knowledge elsewhere. The current headmaster of the school is High Sun Mage Oyamba. In addition to his duties as the school's headmaster, he also serves as the leader of the Tempest Sun Mages, who are responsible for protecting the Magambia from the air. It was in this capacity that 10 years ago he led the defense of the school against an army of Charaka from Usaro, which ultimately led to him ascending to his current position. Although he feels privileged to lead the school, he does feel some frustration at the largely diplomatic and bureaucratic nature of his role. He'd rather be doing legitimate research or directly opposing the forces of evil, but increasingly for those matters he has to trust that the students he trains and oversees will be up to the task instead. Nantambu's civilian government has also been influenced by the history of Old Mage Jitembe and the 10 Magic Warriors. Nantambu is thus governed by an 11-member ruling council of magistrate mayors. This council comprises the head of council, elected by citizens, 5 at-large councillors, also elected by the populace, and a representative from each of the 5 major trade organizations. Elections occur every 5 years, and no councillor, whether appointed or elected, can serve more than 2 consecutive terms. During elections, citizens capable of answering 3 basic questions in their native tongue receive a pouch of colored beads for voting. Each at-large candidate is associated with a specific bead color, and voters drop beads corresponding to their 6 preferred choices into a barrel. The candidate with the most votes becomes the head of council, and the next top 5 are named elected councillors. These magistrate mayors serve dual roles in legislation and the judiciary. Guild-appointed councillors often handle criminal cases, while elected councillors manage civil cases. However, any councillor can preside over any case that doesn't involve a conflict of interest. The members of the council currently are as follows. Lukomo, serving his 2nd term as head councillor, is a seasoned bureaucrat who ascended from clerk to council member. Affectionately dubbed the Weaver, he orchestrates a vast network of connections. Despite his firm hand in meetings, Lukomo is known to diffuse conflicts with kindness and a smile. The Glassmakers Guild representative, Kiko. Kiko is an ebony-skinned Zenge glassmaker with meticulously crafted charms. Enthusiastic and full of ideas, she prioritizes community of service and focuses much of her effort on the city's lighting and beautification. The Fish and Farm Federation representative, Gugulethu. Gugulethu is a Bonawat fisherwoman, embodying the easygoing spirit of the Fish and Farm Federation. Connected to many major families, she brings administrative acumen to the council and enjoys a good reputation as a warm-hearted councillor. The Merchants and Trades Consortium representative, Enosha. Enosha, a veteran trader, represents the Merchants and Traders Consortium, despite controversial rumors about his fortune. Known for his ruthless negotiation, he navigates conflicts with an authoritative ease, and he has a long memory for slights. The Woodworkers Alliance representative, Owethu. Owethu is a flamboyant Bonawat shipbuilder, and he leads the Woodworkers Alliance. He is a more reluctant councillor. He now serves the council with lenient judgments, which he accompanies with colourful storytelling. Millers and Bakers Collective representative, Nobomi. Nobomi is a non-binary miller, gaining prominence through a notable marriage and grain donation. Rising within the collective, they gracefully navigate their responsibilities. Elected councillor Mongameli. Mongameli is a halfling restaurateur who manages a food empire and serves as the lone non-human council member. Known for shrewdness and openness, they secure petitions from non-human citizens to advance the non-human agenda in the city. Elected Councillor Thuba. Thuba, a journeyman with rumored magical beads, is considered one of the more dubious councillors on the council. Accused of electoral manipulation, he maintains an air of mystery. Elected Councillor Kwezi. Kwezi is an educator that ran for her first term based on students' encouragement. Bringing a firm yet fair attitude, she likes to get into the weeds of council issues. Elected Councillor Asanda. Asanda, a former banker, made wise investments leading up to her election. He has made it widely known that he believes his success and his personal investments are a marker of his belief in the city's success overall. Elected Councillor Sifiso. Sifiso is the youngest council member. She is a master woodcarver and an expert at crafting clockwork devices. With extraordinary talent and an inquisitive mind, she provides valuable insights into the city's youth. Points of interest in Nantambu. In addition to the Magambia, Nantambu features numerous other points of interest. These include the battlefield. Situated just a mile beyond the city's limits, a distinct jungle clearing stands barren of crops and untouched by grazing animals. Covered in knee-high creeping lilies with flame-shaped flowers and poisonous sap, this eerie landscape extends for up to 4 miles. Locals recognize it as the burial ground of the first invading force that met a mysterious end overnight. The council instructed citizens to inter the bodies and equipment in this clearing, which subsequently became adorned with the soft glowing lilies that bloom year-round. Despite tales of screams and battles heard by the few brave souls venturing in, healers harvest flowers for medicinal purposes, while less scrupulous alchemists exploit them for crafting poisons. The Black-Crowned Crane. Nestled in the heart of the entertainment district, the Black-Crowned Crane is a renowned establishment where visitors gather, despite rumors surrounding its owner Ebele. A former adventurer, Ebele returned to Nantambu with a mysterious chest, refusing to disclose its contents. Secluding herself for 12 days, she emerged to immerse herself in theater performances and high-end dining before ultimately acquiring the black-crowned crane. Closed briefly for renovations, the nature of the change raised eyebrows, fueling speculation about the mysterious chest. The true contents and their current whereabouts remain an unsolved mystery. The Carnivorous Gardens. A public greenhouse resembling a lush jungle, the Carnivorous Gardens house a variety of carnivorous plants, creating an unsettling yet secure atmosphere. Amidst the noisy writhing of plants and vines, caretaker and guide Natofo, a half-orc botanist, reassures visitors that the garden is entirely safe. Despite their ominous appearance, most plants pose no threat to creatures larger than a frog. A winding stone path ensures guests can appreciate the unique flora without causing harm to it. The Civic League Boathouse. Typically, racers store their personal flats at home due to their small and portable nature. However, team equipment finds a home in boathouses owned by teams. An exception to this norm is the Civic League Boathouse and Repair Facility, where the city's equipment is housed in a sizable dock and multi-story building. Equipped with a lift to transport flats and raw materials, this facility stands in proximity to the council building. Volunteers from the Woodworkers Alliance assist in maintaining the League's flats, and citizens are encouraged to use their tools for their personal flat-related endeavors. The Dance Courts. A popular spot for Nantambians of all ages, the dance courts draw in the young and unmarried, offering a vibrant space for socializing and the showcasing of dance skills. Unlike theaters, where respect for performers is paramount, the dance courts allow people to interact, talk, and display their talents. From classic dances to contemporary creations, the courts host a variety of dances, including group face-offs and ritualized couples dances. Some courts focus on teaching dances to children and young adults during the day, while others support aspiring musicians. Comprising a central dance floor, a small stage for musicians, and curtain alcoves with tables and cushions, the courts create an inviting atmosphere. Open curtains signal an opportunity for servers to offer refreshments or friends to drop by, while closed curtains indicate a desire for privacy. It is considered extremely impolite to disturb closed curtains, as these spaces are not only for entertainment, but also for discussions ranging from business deals to private meetings. The Firepot's Forge. Nestled in a cliffside grotto on the outskirts of Nantambu, Firepot's Forge is an alchemical shop owned and operated by the pyrochemist Firepot Ubanu. Known for crafting specialty weapons often sought for decorative or ceremonial purposes within Nantambu's peaceful streets, Firepot also caters to Magambians and explorers. His inventory includes highly specialized alchemical reagents prized by local artisans and etchers for breaking down stone and metal. Preferring the company of fire elementals over people, Firepot minimizes his social interactions and relies on a group of minotaurs hired as guards to handle customer transactions. Gowanna's Carvings. Renowned as one of the city's finest woodcarvers, Gowanna operates a shop that specializes in hardwood furniture and decorative carvings. While her clientele mostly consists of halflings due to the size of her creations, Gowanna's main business comes from carving the Magambia's signature masks. She generously offers lessons to initiates preparing for Magambia acceptance, with her rates compensated by the university. Gowanna actively seeks rare and magical wood for masks, selling them to those seeking something extraordinary, or, on a whim, gifting them to standout students. The Last Chance Shop. Amidst the bustling activity on Nantambu's docks, the Last Chance Shop stands as a ramshackle yet enduring establishment run by a multi-generational family. A permanent fixture, it serves as a refuge for those unwilling to carry cargo out of the city or unable to find specific items elsewhere. With minimal inquiries about an item's origin, the shop buys and sells goods at varying prices. Known for its discretion, the Last Chance Shop operates without guards, yet rumors circulate about thieves who mysteriously vanishing after attempting theft. Oba's Wondrous Creatures. Run by Oba Ezi, this exotic pet shop thrives on its ability to capture and train rare animals. Oba takes pride in her collection, setting high prices that have become a barrier for potential buyers. Her overly optimistic view of the often wild creatures, coupled with her staunch defense of them in any altercation, can pose a challenge for the business. Oba harbors a peculiar disdain for Nantambu's university, particularly resenting the influence of the Magambia over the city and expressing a low opinion of its faculty and students. The Spotted Hyena. Located on the outskirts of town, the Spotted Hyena stands out among stables and corrals with its eclectic assortment of rideable animals. Lions, giraffes, hyenas, zebras, and more vie for attention alongside common horses and mules. The stable offers the rental and sale of both exotic and mundane animals, with a unique service of hired grooms to accompany the creature. These grooms, for a reasonable fee, defend themselves and the animals in their charge. Sales contracts include clauses requiring the return of the animals to the Spotted Hyena in the event of an owner's demise. The city-state of Usaro. Usaro stands as the most ruthless city in the Mwangi Expanse, embodying an unceasing internal struggle. Once under the rule of the Gorilla King, an intelligent great ape monarch empowered by the demon lord Angazan, Usaro was governed with an iron fist, safeguarding his authority with absolute brutality. However, the most recent Gorilla King Ruthazek met his demise at the hands of adventurers several years ago, leaving a great power vacuum among the cults of Angazan. This led Usaro's residents to engage in a violent contest to find the city's next ruler. As discussed in my Planar Cosmology 101 video, one of the hard limits of most resurrection magic is that it can't affect any creature who doesn't wish to return to life. With the power of an ancient artifact called the Altar of Angazan, however, the Charukah, the sapient mandrills who dominate the city, historically defied this truth, transforming the corpses of their fallen foes into more Charukah. This perversion of the divine order led them to become one of the most loathed peoples in the Mwangi Expanse, even when compared to violently hostile Biloko or the cannibalistic gnolls. The altar was also the chief mechanism used to allow for the ascension of another Gorilla King. The recent loss of Usaro's Altar of Angazan during a Matangi raid changed everything for Usaro, however. Charukah prowl the edges of Lake Okota at night, dragging individuals back to the city's blood river as sacrifices, or experimenting with methods of forcibly reincarnating unwilling victims into servants of their demonic patron. Nothing has worked. Still, depraved individuals from across Galarian continue to journey to Usaro, seeking power and freedom. But even those who survive long enough to enter the city often meet a gruesome fate, becoming little more than a blood splatter while trying to prove their worthiness. Matangi orcs and Alijae elves regularly attack the city, engaging in violent raids under the guise of rescuing prisoners of war and those kidnapped in the night, escalating their perpetual war against Angazan and his servants. Usaro is incredibly perilous for both visitors and inhabitants alike. Within the chaos of Usaro, there are those who revel in the violence and those who have no choice but to live there. The cult of Angazan makes up the majority of the population, mainly Charukah. Most of the rest of the city is made up of a human underclass who live in fear of their fellow citizens. Even though many of these residents live in extreme poverty, they leave offerings of meat outside their door to keep the Charukah from taking members of their family. Order, and more importantly trade, has totally broken down with the death of the king, and those starving are more likely to be eaten themselves by roaming the streets than to find sustenance. Usaro is in the worst shape it has ever been in, and the city teeters on the brink of collapse. Still, others firmly believe that once the next Gorilla King ascends, Usaro will regain its balance, and the wild creatures of the city will be brought to heel. Numerous pretenders lay claim to the title of the next Gorilla King: apes, humans, lesser demons, corrupt elves. Yet without the power of the Altar of Angazan that once adorned the city's high throne, no one can truly assume the title. In the current landscape, the person who wields the most power and influence in Usaro is a man of unknown origin named Shosembe. He unites residents who cannot survive on their own, and do not have ambitions of their own to become the next Gorilla King. Some outsiders believe that Shosembe might actually save Usaro from itself, and bring peace to the city, and even the cynical agree that he makes the most significant moves. Consequently, Shosembe has amassed both the most enemies and the most allies within the city, and such notoriety holds its own value. Shosembe was a powerful Bekyar warrior who came to Usaro only a few years after the death of Ruthazek. He found a place plunged into chaos. He set himself apart from the unprepared newcomers through shows of force. When Charukah attempted to abduct him, he swiftly dispatched them, earning respect and instilling fear among the rest. Gradually amassing a following, he declared himself unwaveringly loyal to Angazan, initiated a war against the Matangi and the Alijae, and displayed tactical brilliance in repelling their raids. Many began to view him as a potential candidate for the position of Gorilla King. Despite reopening conflict with Usaro's ancestral enemies north of the lake, Shosembe also temporarily halted hostilities in order to restore order to Usaro while cultivating alliances within the city's other influential leaders. Diverging from his more violent counterparts, he extended promises of liberation to Usaro's downtrodden chattel humans, assuring them safety and equality under his rule. Even while waging war, Shosembe refrains from the extreme brutality typical of Usaro heavyweights, earning him favor among the city's powerless humans. His desire for order takes a less ruthless path than the Gorilla Kings before him, garnering him support in surprising places. His ultimate ambitions, though, remain clear: to become the next Gorilla King. To do so, Shosembe aims to reclaim the Altar of Angazan, stolen by the orcs and hidden by the Elves. However, his ambitions run deeper. In fact, unbeknownst to many, Shosenbei conceals his true identity as a wizard, using transmutation spells to maintain his warrior facade. This fact remains a closely guarded secret, known only to those who have pledged their loyalty through a binding geas. Those closest to him know that Shosenbei plans to exploit the reincarnation process. His true goal is not simply to trigger his rebirth, but to actually trap the demon god Angazan in a soul gem he possesses, and to steal his power. Success would elevate Shosenbei to the status of Usaro's absolute ruler, but more importantly, to the position of living god. As can be seen, Shosenbei is a calculating, powerful, and yet charismatic figure, a different kind of ruler for Usaro than all the guerrilla kings of the past. His enemies don't know what to make of him. When he first appeared, the Matangi and Alijae initially considered him a potential savior, but after he declared war on them and turned the prospective revolutionaries in Usaro into loyalists, they quickly saw the threat he truly posed. Now they seek to assassinate him, but his power is already well established, and no agents of theirs have managed to get close. His potential to be a unifier may prove his most dangerous quality. Should he succeed in uniting Usaro's people, protecting his human citizens from the violent Charaka, fostering a sense of community across all factions, and compelling criminal organizations laying low in Usaro to prioritize the city's survival, Shosenbei could emerge as a greater threat than any preceding guerrilla king. Points of interest in Usaro. The Abyss of Shrieks. The Abyss of Shrieks, an expansive, uncharted chasm beneath Usaro, yawns wide outside the High Throne. From its depths, occasionally rise a carnivorous mist named Tiktan, devouring any flesh it contacts before retreating back into the abyss. Sacrifices are routinely thrown into the chasm, believed by some to be the amalgamation of tortured souls seeking vengeance against Usaran oppressors, or even aiming to devour Angazan himself. Others speculate that it is the river of blood that has corroded the city's foundations, giving rise to a carnivorous corruption, or that Usaro's yearly sacrifices have awakened some other eldritch horror. Regardless of the cause, constant screams emanate from the chasm. When someone is cast into it, their screams persist for hours despite the apparent endlessness of its depths. The reason for the prolonged agony remains unknown. Attempts to permanently destroy or trap the mist of Tiktan have only strengthened or triggered its rise again, resulting in yet more fatalities. The Harvest Grounds. Dubbed the farm by Usaro's more depraved residents, this residential neighborhood houses humans descended from former prisoners. The buildings, often repurposed prisons and temples, are now barely habitable structures made of stone or marble. The farm, despite its significant size, is inhabited by antisocial individuals who only engage with others when there's something to gain. While distrustful of strangers and those appearing powerful, disguised Matangi and Alijae visitors are generally welcomed for the sense of security they bring. Merchants, too, find acceptance, though it takes time for locals to trust unfamiliar faces. Despite deep poverty, meat often sits outside doors as a tribute for Charaka to collect. The streets, lacking maintenance, are worn down into dirt, covered in dried blood, rotten meat, and old bones. The unbearable smell remains unaddressed due to residents' fear and others' apathy. The farm is a place of neglected souls, surviving and trying to avoid abduction and murder every day. The Grand Seat. The Grand Seat, Usaro's paramount location, once held the seat of the Guerrilla King's power, and housed the altar of Angazan. The stairs leading to the throne are strewn with bodies, some exploded remains of the deemed worthy, others charred remnants of those burnt to death by the Guerrilla King's loyalists. Piles of rotting corpses nearly obscure the ascent, forcing climbers to traverse literal bones of those who have come before. Adjacent to the throne, Charaka and humanoid former Guerrilla King loyalists, including an elven diabolist, lesser demons, and multiple humans, reside. They refuse to acknowledge other claimants to the throne, holding firm to the belief that their patron could still reincarnate. The Crimson River. Flowing throughout Usaro, the River of Blood gets its crimson hue from a mix of red silt and from the bodies sacrificed to Angazan. Foul creatures like giant leeches and failed undead Charaka abominations inhabit its tides. Some suspect the river itself is alive, whispering to those along its banks, urging them to either drink or drown. The River of Blood instills fear and horror, with some viewing the blood as an extension of Angazan, hungry for worship. Crossing the river is perilous, as Charaka from the river quickly notice newcomers, and they are often kidnapped or killed. The Hidden Vaults. The vaults supposedly house treasures from every Guerrilla King incarnation, shrouded in mystery within Usaro. Legends abound, but the exact location remains unknown. Many seekers, drawn by tales of riches, have met untimely deaths, including those who descended into the Chasm of Screams. The true extent of the treasury is uncertain, with speculation that it includes the World-Breaker siege engine taken from Taldor's Sixth Army of Exploration and the giant bombard cannon stolen from the Mana Wastes. Despite numerous raids, the vaults have thus far remained impenetrable. The city-state of Kibwe. In the eastern reaches of the Mwangi Jungle, the great city-state of Kibwe has been constructed over the remains of an ancient pre-human city characterized by colossal walls and peculiar statues. Serving as the primary gateway to the Ndele Gap in the Shattered Range, Kibwe has thrived as a bustling center of commerce, strategically positioned to connect with the prosperous nations of Nex and Katapesh. With only 2 gates, one to the west and one to the north, navigating the labyrinthine city proves challenging for newcomers due to its many internal walls, towering structures, and distinct neighborhoods. The city's ancient walls slope inward for defense, and are covered with inscrutable runes, rendering them supernaturally resistant to damage. They predate the human settlement of Kibwe by thousands of years, and when they were discovered by Zenge nomads, they swiftly decided they would serve as excellent protection for a small settlement. Mysterious soapstone statues adorn the walls and pillars of Kibwe. These statues, known as the Pillar Watchers, have fanciful forms, resembling anthropomorphic creatures such as saurian humanoids or horned avian people. Even discounting its long-lost history, Kibwe has a long, rich history as a human city-state as well. Established during the middle years of the Age of Destiny, when the Empire of Osirian still controlled the eastern side of the Ndele Gap, Kibwe has seen the rise and fall of many empires to its east, and survived them all. They witnessed Nexian independence, the conquests of the Kelishite Empire, whose domed architecture greatly influenced many of the buildings of modern Kibwe, the ill-fated Taldan Sixth Army invasion, and finally the rise of Katapesh. For a brief period, the Zatramba-Rastel Union even declared it a provincial capital of their burgeoning empire, only for Kibwe to declare independence after that empire's fall. Kibwe has since adopted a strictly non-imperialistic stance, a position which has fostered cooperation with the many villages of the surrounding jungles and savannas. Most recently, Kibwe was the site of the second edition standalone Pathfinder module, The Slithering, in which a group of heroes learn some of the secrets of the Pillar Watchers and use one of them to break an ancient curse on the city. Kibwe's markets attract traders and adventurers from across Garand, fostering a diverse exchange of goods and knowledge. Holomog merchants barter unfamiliar spices for Nexian alchemy, while Eruxi traders from distant Droon trade rare seeds for uncut diamonds. Magambian scholars from Nantambu seek out Shori relics among the eclectic wares. Residents proudly claim that if something cannot be found in Kibwe, it simply does not wish to be found. Despite its dedication to free trade, Kibwe faces internal challenges. Friction between the neighborhoods and ethnic enclaves is commonplace, and powerful business entities like the Aspis Consortium and the East Mwangi Mining Company exploit workers for their gains. Former slave traders in Bekyar Block have adapted by renting out their former slaves as laborers, maintaining a brutal grip on those attempting to escape. The city has also experienced an influx of refugees from Usaro, who fled in the wake of the Guerrilla King's death, further complicating the dynamics of its disparate neighborhoods. It's already been 3 years since the curse of the Slithering has been lifted, and its population continues to swell. It grew by half again its original size in half a decade, and has swollen from 4,000 to 6,000 permanent residents in that time, not to mention the 1,000 or so foreign traders that operate in the city at any given moment. Strife is frequent, but overt conflict is rare, as the city recognizes the importance of preserving the commerce that sustains its prosperity. The government of Kibwe. In the formative years of Kibwe, as the once small trading post experienced significant expansion, foreign consortiums and companies vied for dominance over the region, specifically seeking control of its lucrative diamond and gold mines. Fearing external manipulation, the citizens of Kibwe established a representative government that endures to this day. The Representative Council, which currently comprises 38 members, serves as the forum for discussions, albeit lengthy and contentious, in the Adeyanke Pavilion, open to public observation. Factions occasionally emerge within the council, with alliances forming and dissipating swiftly. Unsurprisingly, the most esteemed members of the Representative Council are adept orators. Figures like Abayone Munme, representing the Zenge Trading Alliance, are renowned for balancing the interests of their group with the greater good. She is frequently opposed at council meetings by Balwade Hubu, who represents the Mozimba lands, the lands outside Kibwe, which are primarily tended by Zenge farmers and herders. Another councillor, Lord Magistrate Darvian Estebar, a skilled and passionate speaker representing the East Mwangi Mining Company, has survived purported assassination attempts, adding an air of invincibility to his persona. Kosa Et, representing the White Marks neighborhood, speaks infrequently, but commands attention with weighty and reasoned words. Masu Abwedoma, a vocal cleric of Abadar, represents the many faiths of Kibwe, and adds an unpredictable element to debates. Despite the visibility of the Representative Council, it's just a fraction of Kibwe's government. The Council exclusively addresses matters affecting multiple factions, threats to the city, or trade-related issues. But each neighborhood is free to establish and enforce its own laws, leading to significant variations in internal administration across the city. Notably, the Aspis Consortium administers the Brass Block openly. The Mozimba lands have a representative council of their own, akin to Kibwe's on a smaller scale, and so on. Speaking of the various neighborhoods of Kibwe, the 10 major territories are as follows. The Bekyar Block. Situated near the city's western gate, Bekyar Block was once the epicenter of Kibwe's slave market, driven by a coalition of Bekyar slavers. With the abolition of slavery, many Bekyars departed, making way for new residents and refugees who have markedly transformed the neighborhood. Some former Bekyar slave traders have transitioned to the business of providing hired labor. Gate Master Due Halkiko, officially responsible for gate maintenance and street clearance, claims impartiality in conflicts between the old Bekyars and the newer settlers, yet his influence among the neighborhood's criminals is evident. The Brass Block. Formerly the affluent Mothlight neighborhood, Brass Block underwent significant changes when the Aspis Consortium acquired several manors at suspiciously low prices to establish its expansive regional headquarters. The consortium demolished these manors to create space for planned housing accessible to company employees and other working-class citizens. While most residents appreciate the new homes with modern amenities, including brass plumbing that lends the district its name, a few remaining wealthy families are eager to uncover evidence of the consortium's questionable dealings. Bomandu. In the northern reaches of Kibwe lies Bomandu, a neighborhood named after the abolitionist who generously donated it to shelter former slaves and displaced individuals. Despite the strain on resources due to an influx of Usaro refugees, the neighborhood, led by Amat Nadolo Bomandu, the influential gatemaster of the Northern Gate, remains committed to uplifting the downtrodden. Central Market. Kibwe's globally renowned image centers around its central market, a bustling collection of merchant stalls and caravan houses representing the heart of the city's trade. With permanent structures prohibited, the market is a dynamic labyrinth of hanging tapestries, thick rugs, and wafting smoke, providing the illusion of private shops amid a sea of goods. The city's 3 appointed market masters include the efficient Hayakta Konta, the witty Nadolo of the Open Hand, and the intimidating Copperman, each meticulously ensuring adherence to the complex relocation schedules. Iwisa Block. A microcosm of Kibwe's diversity, the bustling Iwisa Block, located just east of the city's north gate, is a labyrinth of streets and structures. Serving as a preliminary stop for most traders entering the gates, it offers essential services before they move to Central Market. Iwisa Block, characterized by democratic elections for important position, boasts a diverse population, with no single ethnicity dominating. The energetic dwarf Talguru Nagari guides multiple campaigns in its vibrant streets, reflecting the neighborhood's commitment to democratic representation. Miners' Camp. A cornerstone of Kibwe, the East Mwangi Mining Company has been entrenched in the city since the discovery of gold in the hills. To shelter its workers from the perils of the jungles near the mines, the company acquired substantial property just south of Central Market, establishing the miners' camp. Characterized by rows of nearly identical mud and thatch homes, most owned by the company and rented to miners, this neighborhood exudes a sense of uniformity. High fees deducted directly from the miners' pay often leave residents financially strained, limiting their ability to explore the city. Harsh company discipline is evident in the physical marks borne by many of its residents. Mozimba. Outside Kibwe, Zenj farmers and herders tend to the lands, and within the city walls resides Mozimba, a neighborhood predominantly inhabited by these pastoralists. True to their rural roots, Mozimba's residents live in round wooden huts with thatched roofs, clustered around irrigated water sources from the city well. The pastoral appearances belies the neighborhood's shrewd negotiators, skilled guides, and adept hunters. Beautiful parks and a leisurely pace characterize Mozimba, where residents engage in various occupations from working in orchards to operating food stalls and artisan shops. Straggle Block. Nestled between the tightly packed miners' camps and the picturesque Walk of Shrines, Straggle Block stands as the most impoverished neighborhood in Kibwe. Dilapidated hovels house the most destitute of the city's populace, attracting criminals seeking refuge due to lax law enforcement. Hestrax Vex, the current beggar prince on the Representative Council, subtly schemes against the East Mwangi Mining Company. Despite claims of neighborhood pride manifested through attacks on perceived outsiders, many residents would readily relocate if given the opportunity. The Walk of Shrines. Spanning Kibwe's most renowned streets, the Walk of Shrines hosts the city's diverse array of churches, shrines, and related structures. While deities such as Caden Kalian, Desna, and Gosre are worshipped, the majority of the churches here honor ancestors, animal spirits, or the land itself. The neighborhood borders Straggle Block, marked by a wall of church-sponsored aid, highlighting the stark contrast in resources. The Walk of Shrines faces the challenge of having to assist more individuals than the available aid can accommodate. White Marks. White Marks is a neighborhood inhabited primarily by Alijae Elves, and a few non-elves who have adopted their way of life. Characterized by meandering streets and communal longhouses, the neighborhood offers a distinctly elven experience. Marked by white paint, a characteristic Alijae decoration, the buildings reflect the neighborhood's name. Few outsiders venture through White Marks, not out of fear, but due to the ease of getting lost amid its curvilinear streets and its abundance of greenery. Other points of interest in Kibwe include the Adiyanke Pavilion. At the heart of Kibwe's bustling central market lies the sacred Adiyanke Pavilion. Surrounded by tapestries, rugs, and skins hanging from carved poles, the pavilion serves as a serene space separated from the market's activity. Frequently hosting public debates of the Representative Council, the pavilion also witnesses significant events such as prayers, weddings, and funerals. Strewn with flower petals, the ground encourages barefoot presence, with the symbolic raising of a sandal or boot indicating imminent departure, a political gesture within council debates. The Aspis Consortium Headquarters. The sprawling Aspis Consortium Headquarters, a collection of manor houses, dominates Brass Block. Beyond entertaining visitors and overseeing the Brass Block's administration, the headquarters harbors a mysterious secret. The remnants of a demolished cistern adorned with defensive runes. Aspis agents seek to decipher these runes, potentially unveiling the means to breach Kibwe's impregnable walls. Speculations arise about the appearance of a new pillar watcher near the Aspis warehouse, raising more questions about their origin and purpose. Bloodman Hall. Once the hub of the slave trade, Bloodman Hall now serves as the administrative center of Bekyar Block. Despite falling into disuse after the outlaw of slavery, the building has been revived by First Fist Sasyatik, the chief law enforcement officer of Bekyar Block. Operating in ruthless disregard of public perception, Sasyatik maintains order through brutal methods, imprisoning offenders in the old slave holding cells. Secret discussions among neighborhood officials contemplate the revival of legal slavery, with Sasyatik's aggressive approach causing internal tension. The East Mwangi Gold Refinery. Owned by the East Mwangi Mining Company, the largest and most secure building in Miners' Camp is the gold refinery. Evaluating and processing ore from the company's mines, the refinery also accommodates independent miners for a fee. The company's agents closely monitor successful independent miners to gain insights into lucrative claims, potentially aiming to acquire them. The Public Granary. A towering structure above Kibwe's walls, the Public Granary stands as an engineering marvel, combining ancient pottery silos with modern wood and stone architecture. Farmers contribute a percentage of their grain to the granary, ensuring ample supplies for times of famine or siege. Stone barricades and diligent oversight protect the granary, but unexplained shortages and a peculiar pillar watcher raise concerns for its overseer, Bashalin Mbulun. The Road's Gentle End. A luxurious inn near the North Gate, the Road's Gentle End caters to elite travelers and caravans. It is known that owner Jatalu's pricing practices, including additional fees for various services, are designed to exploit unsuspecting newcomers. Despite recent thefts threatening the inn's reputation, Jatalu maintains a facade of exclusivity and relaxation. The Tiger House. Situated just outside the West Gate, Tiger House is a multi-story inn characterized by a defiant pillar watcher with the head of a saber-toothed tiger. Welcoming tradesmen and laborers of all sorts, the inn fosters discussions among patrons about their employers and is considered a safe place to discuss private matters. Tiger House is run by a trio of Bonowat innkeepers who claim descent from Azatas. Nagisa and the Alijae Elves. Originally part of the unified Alijae people, the Alijae diverged from the rest of their kin during the Age of Darkness. Central to the reasons for their departure and subsequent sojourn to the jungle eastern reaches was the interpretation of an ancient evil in a Alijae prophecy. This prophecy is today recorded by Alijae scribes as an epic poem and can be found inscribed on the walls of Nagisa, the White City. The initial Alijae Elves, a small group of fighters, scouts, and storytellers, made their collective decision to journey east in search of this prophesied threat. There they discovered Nagisa, the mysterious White City, which they believed to be the fated place that would harbor the darkness. Furthermore, the city was clearly elven in origin. Its architectural parallels with Alijae styles intrigued them. Carvings on the walls, upon investigation, were revealed to be calls to demon lords, validating the Alijae suspicions. To better understand how it came to pass that such a vast elven city would remain empty and abandoned on Galarian, one needs a better general understanding of Elvish history. For additional details, see my Elven Ancestry Guide. But in brief, the Mualajae and the Ayudin came to Galarian during the Age of Serpents via a network of gates. The Mualajae in particular established a pretty substantive empire in the Mwangi Expanse. However, like all the elves, they became aware of the meteorite that was on a collision course for the planet. I have recounted numerous times that the Mualajae remained in Galarian to fight the threat of Dahak in my various Mwangi videos. However, even among their kindred, it was only a small number that remained. A great number of them fled the world, and so, it seems, did the original inhabitants of Nagisa. As to why the city itself was constructed in secret, and why the remaining elves were not aware of its presence, that was likely due to its consecration to various demonic entities, a fact that this particular sect of elves had chosen to keep secret from the rest of their kindred. The Alijae became determined to cleanse the place of evil. The pyramids dedicated to demonic forces posed a significant threat to their explorers. Despite disastrous early expeditions, the Alijae persevered. Each successful incursion saw the elves clearing, cleansing, investigating, and fortifying, celebrating victories by recording the tales in honor of the fallen. To safeguard their history, the Alijae developed redundant methods of archiving. On pyramid walls, in books and vellums stored within the pyramid, within magical talking masks and carved into precious stones. This meticulous approach reflects the Alijae's belief in sharing the burden of memory through collective preservation. Although Nagisa's original builders had consecrated the White City to various demonic entities, one of the largest and most extravagant temples was dedicated to Nocticula, the goddess of darkness and lust. However, as recounted in my Demon Lord's Religion video, a remarkable transformation occurred within Nocticula, influenced by various events that occurred in the world of Galarian, including the ascension of the new Rune Lords and the war against the demons of the World Wound. Nocticula has ceased to be a demon lord, but has become a full-blown goddess, and not an evil one either, but a neutral good goddess associated with redemption, artists, and exile. This recent transformation has been extremely important to the Alijae elves. In this redemption, they have seen the validation of many of their closely held beliefs. Through her ascension, it has proved that nothing is so inherently corrupt that it can't be absolved. Their choice to purify rather than destroy Nagisa was therefore the right one. Not surprisingly, the cult of Nocticula the Redeemer has been spreading through the Alijae community like wildfire, and many Alijae elves turn to the Redeemer Queen for insights on how other fiends might be redeemed. Indeed, today demonic forces, some of which have laid low in Nagisa all these long millennia, and others of which have journeyed there, have now begun to approach the Alijae, as experts in the matter as to how they might achieve a different life. This presents a conundrum to the Alijae, who wish to believe them, but of course convincing anyone of a fiend's sincerity is a daunting task. Already fiends have taken advantage of the Alijae good intentions in order to advance their own dark agendas. Despite setbacks, Alijae elves are committed to their mission, the complete purification of Nagisa, the redemption of those fiends that can find the path to the light, and the destruction of those that cannot. Alijae elves exhibit skin tones that lie somewhere between the Ekujae and the Kalajae, often accompanied by patches of light skin, white hair, and vibrant light-colored eyes with hints of red and orange. Misconception suggests a fading vitality, replaced by an infernal glow from their dealings with sinister powers. In truth, this unique coloration results from a prevalence of vitiligo, albinism, and other pigmentation conditions within their populace. A distinctive feature among adult Alijae, especially those venturing into Nagisa's pyramids or spending extended periods away, is the large magical masks adorning various parts of their bodies. Originating with a central mask containing family histories and extending outwards, these wooden or golden visages narrate the complete stories of the Alijae and their family. Approaching the end of their lives, Alijae often request their masks be informed of their impending deaths, which is then passed on to their next of kin along with their remains. Family history masks are frequently concealed when in the presence of outsiders until trust is firmly established. Family heirlooms in the form of jewelry and accessories are also passed through the generations, serving as coded recordings recognizable among the Alijae. Woven tassels signify an individual's craft and progress, an ivory tusk with rings denotes defeated demons and purified places, and a multicolored well-woven scarf signifies a lengthy lineage, often worn by the family's next head. Alijae society lacks a centralized council or visible government. This arises due to their small population and the wide spread of their community, where many Alijae lead lives as adventurers, researchers, and chroniclers. The decentralized nature of their community makes the rigid structure impractical. Instead, they've devised a system of coded correspondences managed by archivists on the outskirts of Nagisa, facilitating remote participation in decision-making through voting. Despite their decentralized civilization, Alijae hold family connections in high regard. While everyone in the community is cared for, Only family members, as defined by blood ties and marriage ties, are permitted for inclusion in an individual's historical mask record. Alijae elves often have a divine patron, for pragmatic reasons, rather than following a pantheon or adhering to practices of animism or other spiritual paths. Faith is regarded as personal, and some Alijae have made pacts with fiends for power or knowledge crucial to their survival, causing outsiders to sometimes label them incorrectly as demon worshippers. Most Alijae do follow widely accepted pantheon gods, including deities like Desna, Irori, Nethys, Findalatlara, and of course in recent years the aforementioned Redeemer Queen Nocticula. Alijae elves exercise caution towards outsiders, including their fellow Ekujae and Kalajae kindreds, due to their guardianship over Nagisa and the potential consequences if its power were to fall in the wrong hands. Their initial wariness does soften, however, after an individual's intentions become clear. At this juncture, Alijae leaders may choose to welcome the person as a guest and ally, in the pursuit of knowledge for the greater good, and in this case the visitor will find the Alijae can be quite friendly people. Judgments about whether to welcome someone into the fold or not are not made lightly. Alijae leaders, whether dealing with individuals or established organizations like the Pathfinder Society or Aspis Consortium, take days, weeks, or even months for careful consideration. To ensure accurate assessments, Alijae agents often join adventuring parties and factions, recording coded notes and sending them along with letters on their well-being back to Nagisa. Alijae view this methodical vetting as a necessary evil to ascertain the true nature of those they engage with. Although Earthfall severed the connection between the Alijae elves and the Iodine elves of northern Avestan, recent efforts have been made to rebuild this bond. Queen Talandia Edasaril, after careful negotiation and the respect paid to the White City, proposed an alliance through marriage with an Alijae elf named Zazarel. The agreement, subject to Zazarel's observation and assessment during a stay in Kionin, reflects the Alijae's meticulous approach to diplomatic relations. The White City. Situated to the east of the Badonge River, Nagisa, often referred to as the White City, boasts an enchanting landscape, dominated by white pyramids of mysterious elven design. While Alijae historians recognize connection to Alijae architecture, their investigation also unveiled traces of various other elven and demonic influences. Beneath the city's stunning exterior, the pyramids harbor totems dedicated to different demons, attracting fiends, malevolent fae, and other dark entities. Even to this day, the full extent of Nagisa has not been purified by the Alijae. Its malevolence runs deep, and even areas of the city once established as safe sometimes surprise the occupying Alijae. Upon its discovery in the Age of Darkness, the early Alijae recognized Nagisa as the ominous darkness feared by their prophecies, and embarked on the daunting task of systematically clearing the demonic totems. Today, Nagisa encompasses not only the city with its white stone pyramids, but also the Alijae outposts at key entrances and other frequently breached access points. Despite the Alijae's efforts, the limited size of their sentry force relative to the potential entryways means only a few are guarded continuously. In fact, in spite of the Alijae's earnest attempts to safeguard their city from intruders, their limited numbers result in numerous outsiders finding their way to Nagisa. The most renowned incident occurred in the year 2080, when a full army of Taldan soldiers came across the Nadele Gap and held the city for 6 months. Much to the surprise of the Alijae, who withdrew from the city in this period, the guerrilla king and a vast army of Charaka descended on the city, massacring Taldor's 6th Army and leaving the city's pristine white walls stained with blood. Thankfully, though, just as mysteriously the guerrilla king's army retreated from Nagisa after their victory, allowing the Alijae to reclaim it. Though that was the most notable example of foreign blood being spilled in Nagisa, it certainly was not the last. Smaller adventuring groups embark on the journey each year, and the Alijae cannot apprehend them all. One particular band of treasure hunters from Cheliax has managed to evade Nagisa's guardians twice, securing impressive hauls of treasure. However, on their 3rd entry into the city, they mysteriously vanished and have not been seen since. Unfortunately, lapses in surveillance like this have given rise to a clandestine black market called the Collaborative Interest Trading Post. This rogue bazaar exploits blind spots in the Alijae Watch and accommodates those who are denied entry. The Collaborative Interest Trading Post continually maneuvers around the city's outskirts, eluding the vigilant gaze of Nagisa's self-appointed guardians. Outsiders can also gain entry legitimately, of course. They just need to be deemed well-intentioned by Alijae leadership and escorted by an Alijae guide. Notable points of interest in and around the city include Buyasela. The Alijae maintain several stations and outposts at or near the main entrances to Nagisa. Their largest stronghold, however, is tucked into the jungle near the main gate. Buyasela, often called the Scholar's Haven by outsiders permitted entrance, is a large outpost serving as a library, archive, vault, and training ground. In stark contrast to much of the Alijae culture, life in Buyasela is heavily regimented and controlled by strict schedules. For some Alijae, these rules chafe and go against much of what they knew in the outposts they grew up in. However, the Alijae of the past have learned that this structure is essential to continuing the work of maintaining the archives and slowly pushing towards the heart of Nagisa. The Archives. Though the Library of Nagisa doesn't have a formal name, residents and visitors alike call it the Archives. Spread through converted pyramids at the very edge of the city and several Alijae-built structures nearby, the Archives represent one of the largest collections of demonic lore contained within a single space. Focused on demon lords, their histories, and all locations where they have historically had vested interest in Galarian. For anyone considering facing demon hordes who can make the trek, the knowledge collected here can prove invaluable. However, outsiders are rarely permitted entrance into the archives themselves due to the double-edged nature of the lore contained therein. The same knowledge that would be able to help defeat a demon lord could also be used to aid or summon them. Instead, Alijae archivists will assist outsiders by doing research for them and presenting their findings. The Proving. Along with an education focused on demon lore, Alijae are also expected to learn some form of defense and need training spaces for this. The Proving is a series of circular grounds set up for sparring, dueling, and practice with either magical or martial approaches. Though most Alijae are more comfortable with magic, especially magic that contains or counteracts other magics, some prefer a more direct and physical approach to combat, or a melding of both martial and magical prowess. These heavily warded and fortified spaces are hidden from view, and away from any guests who might be in Buyasela at the time. Alijae are well aware of the reputation they have within the Mwangi Expanse as those who flirt heedlessly with corrupting powers, and are at great pains to prove, at least to some extent, that they can manage the powers they command. The Queen's Vault. Demonic totems and dangerous creatures aren't all that's contained within the pyramids of Nagisa. Within also lie precious artifacts, and some of those artifacts, namely powerful abyssal crystals, could prove devastating in the wrong hand. With each pyramid cleared and made safe, these artifacts are collected, investigated, catalogued, and stored in the deepest reaches of the first pyramid, beginning with the one dedicated to the Redeemer Queen Nocticula. These storage and containment chambers are now known as the Queen's Vault, or simply the Vaults. No one but the most skilled and trusted Alijae archivists are allowed to enter these rooms, ever careful of each artifact as they look for ways to seal the powers contained within or destroy the object and its threat as they continue to slowly cleanse the pyramids. The Temple of the Toad. The current focus of Alijae efforts to cleanse the city, this temple boasts an enormous grotesque statue made of shining black stone at its entrance, out of place among the sharp white stones of the city. The huge sculpture depicts a bloated toad covered with bulging eyes and ripe pustules, with an obscenely long tongue lolling from its wide, drooling mouth. The inscription names it the Eater of Filth, and it bears the signs of dark magic from the demon lord Gogunta. A golden glow emanates from within the structure, as well as the stink of the swamp and an endless echoing howl of torment. Ever since they began their excursions to clear the site, Alijae have been fighting a battle on two fronts, as boggards from the jungle have been constantly trying to break into the city and reach the profane temple. The Collaborative Interests Company Trading Post. Not all who are turned away from Nagisa and Buyasela leave easily or willingly. Established by a consortium of parties with a vested interest in the city, this outpost was originally funded through Chelish imperial efforts. Though a more permanent base would be preferable, the moving bazaar is far easier to keep just outside of the Alijae forces' admittedly short grasp. Over time, the management shifted from the Chelish lands to silent backers from across Galarian, with disparate end goals but a shared interest in the possibilities of power and treasure at the heart of Nagisa. Once called simply Sargava Outpost No. 4, it has since been renamed the Collaborative Interests Company Trading Post. Rumors abound on how the trading post's managerial group seems to stay one step ahead of the Alijae watches. Some believe there's a mole high up in the Alijae guard who keeps them abreast of when and where the lookouts will be strongest. Some say there are powerful diviners and mages with interest in Nagisa who spy for them. Some believe the Alijae simply allow the trading post to continue, keeping their enemies close and stopping things if they go too far.